What's up, everyone? Make sure you check out the West Network website at westwestnet.com. Here you can find amazing independent podcasts based in Aotearoa, covering everything from pop culture to mental health. Also, if you enjoy our content and want to support us, please consider clicking on the support button on the homepage of the website. We appreciate your patronage and look forward to delivering more thought-provoking and quality conversations.
West, y'all.
I was at karaoke last night in Gleneagles. That's my other pastime. I'm a retired sportsman, so I sing as an outlet. And again, I put it out there when I'm on stage that to vote if they have, if they haven't made their decisions. And so I try and engage with everybody, even when I go to supermarkets. That's the industry that I work in. I try and engage with people then.
Supermarkets. Oh, so this is part of your campaign to go on to enter the local politics. So how's that going? How's that going?
It's going. The fact that I'm actually on the ballot papers. The fact that I've got people who I know in the areas actually text me, or like last night there were several people that said they've already ticked, so you didn't know until I told them that they will tick for me when they go home and open the packs. The biggest problem in local politics is coverage. As simple as that. A lot of people do not know who actually stands. Yeah. I mean, I voted for others in the past who face recognition because I've seen them on the road standing with their placards, but I don't know them personally. Yeah. And so I made an intuitive action for the last 18 or so months to try and engage with people while I'm working. A lot of my co-workers and stuff like that to let them know that I am interested in politics. That is my passion, and that if a chance that I put my name forward as a candidate, just consider me. Yeah? And I make it an effort to say to them, I'm not like anybody else, and I'm not. I don't belong to any parties. I don't belong to any organizations that are affiliated to any parties. I don't have any donors, only wealthy donors, that pour a lot of money into these campaigns. I mean, you look at the billboards, they're bloody dear. And part of a lot of other frustrations I have is that why do we need weeks of campaigning? You could do 2 weeks is sufficient. It's money wasted. Yeah. And then when you have, like the official Collins being endorsed by Labour, that's not his money. That's Labour's money, which in turn is also people's money who donate. Yeah. So what do you get out of that?
Mm. So you're referring to the competition that happens when you come as an independent into the local board or local government elections, and you're right, because there's times when you're driving the car, you're driving around, and you see people with the picket signs, and you don't know who it is. But because they don't have, other than the newspaper, and you're lucky to even read that part of the newspaper when they come up. Yeah. But it depends on how many signs you've got around the city, yeah. And even that, you just know that they've got a sign. You don't know the background of that person. You don't know anything else other than what logo they have. If they have endorsed by Labour, they have that logo. All we know is the identity that they're Labour. Okay, so we understand we're there. Where they are on the political spectrum, Yeah. So, how do you think we can overcome that? How do you think as a public we could be more aware of who's running for what? Because even that, it's like I can't even understand what is a local board. Because out west you got all these elections. You got local board elections. You got mayor, which is the whole city. And then you got the trust, these trust electorates. I think nobody knows who to vote for, who's going to where, who's going to what.
The trust issue is something that I've been against for a long time. I believe in fair competition. I believe that there should be competition from other companies or other people who want to trade. When it comes to alcohol. The problem with the trust is that there's a monopoly. I don't understand how such a law can be put out there, can be implemented to say that only a specific company or trust or whatever can, trade in a certain area. And the West Auckland is a huge area. How is that fair? How has that, or how does that break rules? You know what I mean? I don't understand that. I mean, we talk about the duopoly with supermarkets at the moment, and petrol stations, and oil and so forth. The likes of building supplies at the moment, where only certain 2 or 3 suppliers have the monopoly on building supplies. But yet we don't actually, but there's inquiries going for those things. But yet the trust issue, there's no inquiry. There's none. It's we have to wait for a few years until a referendum, and then even it's skewed to the point where people think the trust actually offers community-based initiatives, by donating whatever they get from the pokies. And that's the thing that a lot of people do not get, is that the money that the likes of the trust actually get are from pokies. Simple as that. But the problem is that as much as they say we're donating a certain amount, they don't donate enough. They make a lot of money. And the likes of the trust is a business. It's simple as that. And it's not so much charity-based, it's more for business-based. When you have a CEO that's basically being paid just as much as the mayor of Auckland, what does that tell you? So I'm for having an open, fair competition, and when it comes to alcohol laws in West Auckland, especially out West Auckland. So, but in answer to go back to your question, in when you mentioned how can we get more people involved in local politics, and the problem is that there's not enough people from normal environments. Everyday Joe blog environments. I work in an industry where manual laboring roles. I work overnight, night shift, and stuff like that. That's real. That's how I see how communities are. That's real people, not people that you see in corporate, offices or any of these other institutions that wear all these suits and ties and things like that. I work with people who may not have degrees or whatever, but still they are real people. And if real people do not have an idea of someone who comes from that environment, then they are left behind. They don't know who to vote for. And that's why I'm trying to break that ice by trying to hopefully be someone to break that mold and be seen as someone coming from that environment, and hopefully lead future people that will see me and say, well, if Tua can do it, then I can do it. And that's what I'm trying to. So trying to encourage people from, who's a cleaner, a security guard, who fills shelves at supermarkets can. It's those sorts of people that need voices in these sorts of positions in any platform in politics, which we don't have. We don't have. And sadly, when you look at the backgrounds of a lot of these people who are standing for politics, they all come from academia, lawyer, business background. Most of them come from those three backgrounds. But very, very few come from real jobs. And that's what I'm hoping, if I'm lucky enough to get into these positions, then I'm trying to break that mold.
It sounds to me what you're talking about. If I can recall, like, this is the position where the Labour Party should be, because they've been like in that position historically. And I think, do you think it's because when MMP came around, you got more parties involved with, and you got more parties having a chance to get into Parliament with the more members of Parliament, and then they have like an influence now. So now it's a case of Labour Party through the years, or after that time, to have a more range of the type of people they cater for, not just the working class anymore.
But hell, I mean, I laugh when I hear that analogy put out there for MMP. MMP was touted as a game changer when it comes to democracy. Yeah, and I voted for that. But I had specific understanding that it would be a sort of fair 50-50 type of thing. The problem with MMP, we've had it, 25 years or so, is that it's not real difference. I mean, the Greens, for instance, or Māori Party or New Zealand First can just scrape in through a 5% threshold, or even a candidate who wins an electorate seat. But how much influence do they actually have in government policy? How much actually... What actually can they actually do to make changes? You've heard the phrases the tail wagging the dog. That's basically what's happening at the moment. There's still an unbalance there when you have smaller groups who do scrape in but have minimal or no influence. What does it mean when if you're part of the government coalition, but yet none of your ministers are in the cabinet, or your minister outside the cabinet? What the hell does that mean? What influence do you have outside of the cabinet? Bugger all. So if first past the post, MP, it's just another. It's the same concept, and that's the disappointing part about MMP is that it hasn't really changed anything, because you still see the same two major parties still there. It would not make no difference. It wouldn't make no difference. And that's the sad part about MMP, is that the changes that we were hoping to see with minor parties influencing policy hasn't really materialized. And would it, could it change if in the future that we decide to maybe decrease the threshold from 5 to 4% or even 3%? Would that help? The problem with that is obviously you got more fringe parties who may have a chance. Destiny Church, for instance, they may get a chance to get in there just and what would they do, or how much would they influence any future policy if a group like that gets in? So that's the dilemma that politics or people that will in power will have to see what they can do, is whether they can, if you really, really want an MMP environment, do you change the landscape? A question that's been asked around lately is, do you reduce the voting age to 16? Me personally, yes. I believe so. And because, surprisingly enough, there are 16-year-olds that are actually quite smart, that are actually onto everything that you see. You've seen lately, a few days ago, a protest climate change, for instance. It's these sorts of kids that will continually generate publicity for issues that the old people, the supposedly people in power, talk about it, but don't do nothing about it. And so I believe that the voting age should be reduced from 18 to 16.
What about the people that say that with the age, like a 16-year-old doesn't have the same problems as like a 40-year-old with a family, with kids, that is working, has to pay the bills? Like that's the argument against that.
But do their opinions mean any less? in Western countries, we have a lot of laws that govern for young people. You know, we come, I don't know, but in the islands, for instance, young people do not necessarily have a say in day-to-day running of a lot of things. I mean, that's for sure. You know, we're more of be seen rather than be heard. That's the culture when it comes to children in the Pacific nations. But in Western nations, we underestimate the power and the intellect of a lot of these young people. We do underestimate. And the problem is we don't give them enough credit to allow them to speak, to speak about the problems. You know, we've seen the issues of suicide and depression, high rates of all those things, mental health issues right now. You know, and we constantly try and tell people, you know, you're not alone. You know, if you want help, you know, open your mouth, speak up, talk to somebody. Yeah, but yet we don't give the same sort of regard to a lot of to young youth. You know, you don't know what you're saying, you don't know what you're doing, you're too young, all those things. But you'd be surprised that the amount of things that they're actually quite clued up on. It's just that we as adults do not give them enough credit or platform to allow them to open their voices. You know?
There is a space for those young people anyway, especially in this age of technology and social media.
Yep.
Because that's overcome society in a big way.
Yep.
Since internet started.
Yep.
Like for us, we come from a generation where we had no internet.
Yep.
Right, and now we are in the internet. We know both worlds. Yep. But the new generation are born into this new age of social media and all that. So there'll be a sort of disconnect between the older generation that are in politics with like the young generation, because they've got the ear to the ground, that they know what's happening.
Yep.
And that sort of thing. Like, so in that way, you know, that will mean more. Because when you think about Joe Biden, how old he is and close to dementia,
80,
and you know all the young Democrats that went for the job. There were so many of them, you know, and you would think that, you know, the young educated, that generation knew what was out in the field, you know, they knew what was out on the ground, what the kids or the younger or the next generation coming up, what they need, as opposed to old man Joe Biden, you know. So I think there should be, like, my opinion should be, there has to be a balance.
I mean, I agree. I mean, that's a word that you're going to hear a lot, a balance. But I also believe.
But then, how do we find the balance? Well, what is the balance? Like, people say we need a balance, but they don't be specific enough.
See, for me, the balance for me in terms of coverage for me is that I don't do a lot of media coverage, as I said earlier on. And a lot of young people excel in the media, in social media environments. Yeah, why? It's because there's no real scrutiny, no people around them. Stand in front of a phone and do your thing without nobody looking. Yeah, anybody can do that, and that I can say anybody can do that. The problem, but the biggest test will be actually standing in front of a room or hall or whatever with a lot of people. A lot of people can, and actually say and speak your mind. But I'm also a believer that if you're passionate about certain things, and sometimes reading from script or pre-edited speech or whatever, sometimes that doesn't necessarily resonate. I'm a believer that if you have an idea in your head, you ask me a question, I'll give you basically a reply. But it comes from here, and it comes from here. And that's the reply that I will give you. It doesn't come from an advisor, you know, blah, 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 or someone, or you know, or staff member, you know, writing something a day or a few days before, give it to me, and then I have to read it. You watch a lot of interviews of politicians, a lot of them, all pre-scripted, a lot of them, you know. There's no real sincerity when it comes to actually speaking in front of people on issues that actually affect a lot of people. And that's the balance that young people need to find. If you have the courage to voice your opinions or issues on social media, then test them in the open. Test them in the open in front of your peers, not necessarily in front of your peers, but also test them in front of older people. Yeah, great power or church or whatever. Test it, because you'll soon find that either you have a positive feedback or you don't. But that is the only way that you can probably counter all this unbalance where the voices of young people are not heard. So test them in those fields, and you have an idea how whether it can be positive or how it can affect the things that you actually stand for.
I think social media too is a sort of stops that from happening as well, because with all the algorithms, whatever you're into on social media, you're only going to see that stuff that you're into.
Yep.
And you'll never see the other side of the story.
No.
According to the algorithm. So that's a problem in itself. But what you're saying is try to get out there. And you're right, it is hard. It's hard for kids these days because they are behind the computer and texting and and messaging and sooner or later that's going to be the comfortable space, so they can't do anything else. So when it comes time to go out there and debate, or just have an idea and put it out there, and it gets challenged, then how are you going to handle the challenge that comes to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I believe that when you see a lot of young people protesting, you see basically young people. It's generally young people, yeah? Their voice is one. They're under the same notion that, they're protesting on the same issue. So it's a collective for them, yeah? It's easy for them. But if you try and push whatever they want to push in say, a meeting of grey power, for instance, a meeting of ratepayers and or homeowners or whatever, push these issues. What sort of reaction would they think that they will get? Completely different. But it's about courage. It is about courage. An example, Chloe Swarbank, for instance, the Green MP for Central Auckland. She stood for mayor. Not last time, but the previous election. She was very young, I think 22 or something like that. I never voted for her. Smart enough person, and the reason why I didn't vote for her was that I felt that she would have, if she had become mayor, she possibly would have been eaten alive in the system. She would have been eaten alive, chewed out, spat out, and that would have ruined a young person's, would do harm in a young person's mental well-being. And I look at her now, where she's where she is now, and I'm not even sure whether she, wants to be an MP full time per se. I think she's only about now 2 terms, and she was lucky to stand this time because I believe she wanted to finish. She didn't want to stand in the last election, but it takes a toll on young people, and that's so. I give her a thumbs up for giving this part a go. Whether she has achieved or will achieve what she set out to do is again, it's only history will say. But young people need to be out there as well. I look at the likes of we constantly talk about diversity in politics, Cam. Politics. When people say when we need more diversity, what does that actually mean? Sure enough, Indian here, Islander here, women here, more women here. Okay, we can do that. That's the easy part. But for me, I believe diversity extends also in backgrounds. As I alluded earlier to you before, most of these politicians, ex-present, or from very, very few backgrounds, but none of them are from environments that we, especially Pacific Islanders, grew up with. Manual and meaning, low-paying work that we, our grandparents and our parents and our uncles that came here to fill all these dirty jobs. Yeah, none of them represent those people in those environments. Regardless of whether you can say Official Collins from Otara and Filipina and so forth. What do they actually represent there? You know? I was asked by one person who was a party owner once a few years ago when I stood in Mount Roscoe by-election. He said, well, you know, why don't you be good as a candidate in South Auckland? You know, it was the first time I met this person, and he thought that I, who looks like me, would be good as an island candidate in South Auckland. You know, and I said, well, no.
There's so many.
Yeah, what gain do I get out of it? It's easy for me. I could have, you know, and that's the other thing about politics where it really, really annoys me is that, you know, I could have actually go down that path. You know, say David Tua, for instance, if he decided to put his name, forward in politics in the future, he would possibly get in simply because of his name recognition, but also the religious side of things when it comes to island politics. You know, I could have actually gone down that path, you know, and do the church thing and do the prayers and, you know, and say the right words.
What year was that when you had that choice? When you were coming up to that choice, whether to run in South Auckland?
I was in Mount Roscoe by-election,
right.
where Michael Woods won. It was an interesting experience because I came up against him, the former national MP Pamaji Palmer, and other candidates. But it was a tough learning curve for me that particular year because I was a newbie and I didn't know anything in terms of trying to get my foot in the door. Didn't know Cam, and I had to fight to even get an interview with Western Leader. I was the last. There were 7 candidates. I was the last one for them to actually be interviewed. And that also applied for 2017 election. You know, when you're not supposedly polling higher, and that's a thing that really pisses me off as well. The media don't give you a look in, you know. And that's the other thing, to go back to a question you asked before, you know, what can we do to influence people into politics? The problem is not enough media coverage. You know, you look at the people that are standing for the mayor, Auckland mayor at the moment, who's about 15, whatever, you know, but we only know about 3.
I just know 2, Wayne Brown and Fissel.
We knew 2 others who left, who finished, Malloy and Vic Betts.
That's right.
But there are others, you know, Craig Lord, Ted Johnson, you know, and others that are there, but they've never been given an exposure. And that's the thing that really, really brushes me out. You know, why? You know, we want people to stand in these sorts of positions, but yet we do not give them the time of day. That's the thing that processed me off. You know, I had to crash 2 debates when I was in 16 and 17, 2 debates. You know, funnily enough, both of them in the church. It's the other thing. Don't understand why they have these political debates in churches. You know, considering we're supposed to be a secular country, you know, separate church, separate government. But yet, you know, debates in church.
Is that to get the people in? Because they know there's people at church, so they have the debate there.
Possibly, but there's also a little bit of favoritism, you know. So a lot of churches may favour Labour in that sense, and vice versa. Who knows? I don't know. But the debates that were in church were mediocre because I'm someone who is actually combative. I'm combative when it comes to issues. You know, you ask me a question and I'll tell them, but I'll say it in a way that I'm passionate about it. The problem with having debates in churches is you have to be a little.
You got a cross behind you.
Yeah. That's it. You have people say, "Oh, you know." and that's what I felt in my experience, and I could never understand that. But most importantly, bro, I mean, I you know, as a candidate in those 2 times, I was not invited. I was not invited, you know, and yet I stood, 7 of us. You know, one person took the moderator, the organizer to court to try and, you know, get their names to be included in the debates. I crashed. I actually crashed the debates. Yeah.
You had to.
Well, the old saying is, good any publicity is good publicity. So, if you're not going to invite me, I got you. I'm going to crash your party.
See, that's a good headline for any newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, so those are the issues that I see, and yet I'm not. A lot of people will say, "Well, you're not qualified. You don't have no experience." You don't know until you actually give someone like myself a chance. You understand? You don't know, and that's part of the problem. I'm not a suit and tie guy, as you see. How I despise that. The old phrase, clothes makes a man. That phrase. Never understood that. I wear something I'm comfortable with. I don't give a damn about what I need to wear to show you, supposedly where how I live and what sort of income I earn. You understand? And that's part of the problem with also politics. When I came up against a lot of these candidates in the past, they would be dressed up to a T. But with me, be shorts and a T-shirt. So and that's reality for me. That's reality.
That's why, I always dreamed of working in Hawaii, because they don't have shirt and size. They have a lot of shirts.
Yeah,
their business attire.
I mean, one of the things that if I was ever lucky enough to get into central government, as I said to you before, that's my real goal, is to change the dress code in Parliament. I have never understood that we, as opposed to a Pacific Island nation, never understood why we still have to wear attire that doesn't necessarily represent, a lot of people, around the Pacific Rim. Never understood that. I don't expect to wear lava-lavas or anything like that, but dress accordingly that is comfortable. I can't wear a suit for long periods of time. I can't. So that's one of the things that I will have in my head. And even if I'm lucky enough to get into council again, there'll be the things that I'll be looking at as well to change that mindset. I don't need to suit to show the community of who I am, or what I supposedly stand for. I think a lot of the British system's outdated. Outdated, and when you wear these sorts of things in Parliament, that's outdated. And there needs to be more representative of the cultures that we have now. As in the next 50 or so years, you're going to see a browning of Aotearoa. You're going to see Asian, more in Aotearoa. So that needs to change with the times.
The demographics for voting is interesting, especially in Auckland, because they talk about the Labour fortress, which is Manurewa, Mangele, and what's that one? There's 3 elections out there.
Aotearoa?
Electorates. Aotearoa, the other one. And those are the, historically, Labour always wins those ones, no matter what. And it's funny you brought up the Asian community, because there's a lot of them out there, but a lot of them don't vote, I understand. A lot of them don't. Or a lot of them now used to be aligned with Labour, now maybe 2/3 of them align with
I think culturally,
National.
Culturally you'll find that the Asian community would align with National simply because it's money. It's money. I mean, Asian community, they strongly focus on economic aspirations, and when they know that a certain party will help them or put through policies that would help them gain more money or whatever, or save more money, and then they'll look at that. Where the likes of Labour, a left-leaning party, will actually not necessarily do so much like that. If anything, they'll want to spend money, taxpayers' money, give you money, and they see that as a solution rather than encouraging you to work for your money, to live. And that's the difference between these two parties, as you see now. Where Labour has a majority now, and they're literally now money is really being thrown at a lot of issues. And sadly, the solutions are there. I'm a believer that the solutions are for a lot of the problems that are occurring right now. The solutions are there. The problem with politics is ideology, and that's the problem. When you talk about the fortresses of Labour, for instance, South Auckland, I mean, I'm also a believer. I cannot understand in the mindsets of some people. Who generation after generation they would vote for a specific party, but that specific party may not necessarily put their interest at heart. Yeah, they normally vote because their parents vote or their aunties vote. The kids will follow the same thing. It's starting to change in terms of the newer generation now. They're actually thinking outside of the box and voting. You actually see what actually these groups can actually do for them rather than actually vote because it's become a generational thing.
Yeah, that's where I've sort of had my stance too. Like looking at the policies before you do anything. Yeah. Like it'd be cool to not see the policies without looking at the party and just tick and give yourself a score. What policies you like, what policies you don't like. Whoever scores the highest, that's the party you should vote for.
You see, my thing on policies. I'm 55, and I grew up from a church background. Before I was 22, I was heading to become a church minister. Yeah, and until my dad died back in '88. So things changed. You know, the old parable, scales falling out from your eyes, came to mind. Everything changed. My outlook changed. And I realized that a lot of the things that I was doing back then was not necessary for me. Yeah, as a lot of island kids back then, everything was for our family. You had no goals. What's your dream? You had no dreams. No goals. Everything you had to do. Your parents say do something, you do something. Simple as that. No dreams back then when I was growing up. And one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of the South Auckland voters is that they do not actually think outside of what they are so used to for many, many years. It's counterproductive when they constantly vote for the same party who doesn't necessarily fight for them. They may say that in public, but and the other thing, a lot of those people also may not necessarily understand or read policies or understand how it would impact them, and that's the biggest problem. One of the reasons why I could never possibly stand in South Auckland is because I believe in certain things that will go against a lot of the belief systems in South Auckland. I mean, I'm for abortion, for instance. I'm for I'm for euthanasia, for instance. I'm for LGBT. The gay community rights and so forth. Those are the issues that I believe in. I think it should be a human right for these issues. But you try and put out there those things in places like South Auckland, and you will get voted out. As simple as that.
And that was kind of like what sort of happened before John Key became Prime Minister, because if you remember back then when Labour brought out I think there was 3 laws that really was controversial, especially with the Pacific Island community, and those was the legalization of prostitution, the no smacking law, and the other one was the abortion one. No, that was the other. Was it? There was the third one. Prostitution, no smacking law, and there was another one. Third one.
Yeah, I can't recall the third one, but I recall they were contentious issues.
Yeah,
but I think
no, it was gay marriage.
Yeah,
that was the other one. No.
Yeah, they were contentious issues, but I think we have to have a look at history. It took a long time for women to get voted. To be able to vote. It took a long time for land rights for Māori and stuff like that. Yeah, it took settlements and stuff like that. It took a long time, and it took a long time for these issues to come to the fore, for it to be voted by people who now have an understanding the impacts of such laws if they don't push it through. I said to you earlier, I'm a believer in we separation between church and state. I'm a believer that we live in a secular country. We live in a secular country, and I'm also a believer that human rights trumps religious rights. hands down. I treat you fair because you're human. We bleed the same blood, stuff like that. But I don't, but if you're gay, and say, well, no, you're, because I don't believe, what you do and stuff like that. What's that all about? And it's taken us a long time to get used to that. That there are people that will be different. They live different lifestyles, and I don't care, whether you're gay or not. At the end of the day, it means nothing to me. You don't hurt me. I've done nothing. You live your life, as long as you treat people fairly. That's all that I ask when I meet people. But politics can be a divisive game. It's a divisive game. It's a toxic game, especially when you're in it. Because I read a lot of negative feedback from a lot of ex or current, MPs and stuff like that. And you must ask, well, why do you want to enter that sort of lines then? I said, well, you can't change things if you're not willing to enter the lines then. And simply whinging about it and posting, your comments on Facebook or social media, whatever, ain't gonna do nothing unless you actually have the guts to actually stand and voice that opinion that you're concerned for people that supposedly hold power over a majority of us. It ain't gonna changes ain't gonna happen by itself until people start rising up and start really, really be forceful when it comes to trying to make changes.
I agree with you, and I believe in free will. As long as you don't hurt me, I don't hurt you. You can do whatever you want, sort of thing. When it comes to the gay marriage thing, like it's really controversial, especially when you remember the whole thing with Israel Folau, how he got kicked out of rugby because of his beliefs. And then you got earlier this year with the Manly Seagulls with the players
seven
not
guys. Yep.
those 7 guys not playing
the jersey.
For in the jersey. I mean, see, for me, I think, okay, if you're not hurting me, I'm not, I'm not doing anything to you, you're not doing anything for me, so I don't care what you do. Like, I don't understand why people can't just have that in mind.
See, my understanding or my opinion on that is simple, Cam. We tend to forget or probably be ignorant as islanders when we go into, especially if you're a player in professional sport, if we go into these sorts of environments thinking that we can bring certain beliefs into a professional culture, and your bosses or those who are contracting you will understand and will let you do that. Doesn't work that way. I'm a believer that when you enter, when you sign a contract and become a professional sportsman, you are obligated to do certain things and to not bring the company into disrepute. Again, I believe your faith-based beliefs are something that, for me, who grew up in that environment, is personal. It's personal and should not and does not transcend into your professional life. That's my belief. The problem with a lot of the Islanders who come, and most of them who in these league and rugby who enter that environment, they not quite they don't quite understand how to differentiate. Yeah, if you're contracted to a league company, rugby company, they're paying you big bucks to play sport. We pay whatever we need to pay through Sky subscription to watch you entertain us. We are not paying for your opinion on some religious issue. We're not paying that. And that's the difference that these players do not understand. Folau's issue is a classic example. Folau's issue also when he aired his own things in supposedly private, but it came out on video. Well, what were you going to expect? You know, when you're a high-profile individual and you hear certain things supposedly in private, there's always a chance that those things will come out. You know, and one of the things that I've always could not understand a lot of these high-profile individuals, they have no idea of how to manage certain issues when it comes out in the media. No idea. You know? And that's the weakness that I see in a lot of these sports individuals that, you know, if you listen to them, how they talk and stuff, you know, you wonder, you know, a lot of younger people can actually speak eloquently more than a lot of these adults in these positions, yeah? And that's the thing that I find when I listen to a lot of these professional sportsmen. They can't separate their professional lives from their personal lives. For me, religious personal. That's my belief. Outside of my professional life, it should not intermingle. That's simple. You know?
Unfortunately, that at first, unfortunately, it didn't work well for any of those situations. But yeah, you're right. But these days it's hard, man, because of PC, political correctness, you know, diversity, you know, the LBG, whatever. I forgot.
You're born here.
Yeah.
See, one of the things I have nieces and nephews, you know, and I love them to death, and I try and encourage them to learn as much as possible. You get an education to earn more money than your parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles, to be in positions of authority, to gain you know, higher education. Those are the things that I encourage my nieces and nephews. But I also encourage them to say, even though, because there's Tongan blood in our family as well, and even though I encourage them to still have maintain certain cultural aspects from your own background, but also remember that you're westernized kids. That as much as we when I was growing up, we never had an option of living the so-called Kiwi lifestyle. Everything was all island lifestyle. But the kids now that are born here, there's a little bit of a dilemma at the moment where, you know, they're trying to retain a certain cultural identity, as well as also trying to retain westernized cultural identity. So that's the advice that I give to my nieces and nephews. I say, remember your cultural background. Remember who you are, your grandparents' migration and so forth and whatever. Remember to try and learn some cultural aspects of your background and stuff like that. To remember your language, try and learn it, retain it. But you also need to remember you're born in New Zealand or you're born in Australia. And you can't try and bring a lot of your, your parental or parents' background into your lives, because the whole purpose of your parents and grandparents who come over here is to better their lives, not necessarily to try and relive their lives. And that's what I'm trying to encourage my nieces and nephews as well. Is that, you know, as much as we love certain cultural things, again, you know, this is a Western country. You know, we live in a white man's world. It's that simple. So if we are going to excel in these sorts of countries, then we also need to play the game. We need to be focused on if we're going to attain certain things, if we're going to overcome the biases that a lot of our brown kids will inevitably face when they grow older in all institutions, then we need to play the game. You know, we need to harden our resolve. We need to thicken our skin. We need to learn to speak strongly, like I'm doing with you now, you know, and not back down, and not use swear words, and not, you know, get angry and suddenly lash out physically. I would have done that 30 years ago, yeah? But right now, I want to speak. I'll speak to you and try and calm any situation down, rather than trying to, you know, beat your head in or something like that. And that's the things that I'm trying to encourage my nieces and nephews. These are the things that you are going to face in the future. But remember that your parents and your grandparents have faced all those things. But the difference is that you are living basically two different lives, and you have to find a balance to try and gel both of them together.
My parents had the same. My parents had the same thinking, which is why my parents growing up, because they came from Samoa, and had us here, me and my sisters. But when we grew up, they never spoke Samoan to us.
Yeah.
They spoke English and they only spoke Samoan to each other.
Yeah.
We went to a Samoan church, but that was all we. That was the only Samoan we heard. Just going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Maybe going to my uncle and auntie's house.
Did you understand a lot of it?
Just a little bit, not much, but only understand when we get in trouble. You understand those ones. But I remember asking my mum later on in my life, like, how come you never spoke to us in Samoa? Like, I probably asked her when I was 21 or something like that, and she said, because we came from Samoa, you guys born in New Zealand, you're gonna grow up learning English so you can go do well in school. You're living in a palangi. Well, that's exactly what she said. So that's the way she brought us up, thinking that. But then, along the way, I had a feeling of losing a bit of my. I was given that I didn't speak the language very well. I understood more than I could speak it. But there was a part of me that was missing later on in my life, like the identity of being a Samoan. I'm always proud to be a Samoan, but then just having the full cultural experience, was kind of lost to me. But, saying that, like, it's true that a lot of our parents, brought us up, brought a lot of the New Zealand born kids like this, and had that same thinking. But do you think now, in today's age, with diversity, there's sort of there's like especially with diversity, it's helping change things to the Western world. Like, if you think of the political correctness, diversity, even cancel culture to the extreme, it's looking at the Western world and saying, hey, enough of this, things are changing.
I mean, the Western world has been in power for many centuries, for a long time, as history has recorded. And as an immigrant, a lot of people are moving around the world, supposedly better lives, and fair enough, But I said to somebody earlier, we came in 1975. There were 7 of us. 2 were left in Samoa to help with my grandparents' plantation. Older boy and a younger one, younger me. I told you they were stronger than me. I was supposedly sickly, so I come with my dad. And the other 2 were younger than me, so 3 came to New Zealand with my dad. My mum was already here a year earlier to set up shop, and 2 were born in New Zealand. So the 7 of us all together. But we constantly talk about in your story about you not able to speak fluently. Yeah, I mean, Māori, as you know, the history of Māori, their past, a lot of their people weren't allowed to speak their language. They were beaten and they were forced to live in palangi households and all this. Yeah, that's heavily documented. But what's not so documented is the actual the events that occur when people, young people that are born here like yourselves, are here. That probably a little bit estranged from basically your cultural background. I mean, you mentioned that you went to church and stuff like that in Samoan church, but yet you didn't understand a lot of it. I am finding that is the case with me now. Is that I've lost a lot of understanding of meanings of a lot of words, especially when I go to these whalabilabis, they do the big laungas and stuff like that. The hell, but I have no idea what they're saying. And that's because, as I said to you earlier on, I wanted to try and to be that palangi kid, to learn the palangi way. And to assimilate and to be part of that this palangi culture, But I realized in the last 5 years, when I turned 50, I realized that I got nothing now to prove. Nothing. I mean, I'm at a time in my life now where I need to actually do things that are actually for me. And one thing is to actually now try and rekindle aspects of my culture, language. Like I said, I try and speak as much as I can at home, and also I try and speak as much as I can with island people that I meet, and other things. My brothers and I could become Matais, for instance, if we wanted to. But for me, that's never been something that I wanted to pursue. I think such things left to people who want to commit themselves 100% to those being a Matai. Secondly, I don't have any tats. It's very rare you see islanders don't have tats. Yeah. And the reason why is that a lot of the tats that we have are cultural. There's a background story and the reason why those tats are for. I'm a believer that I haven't earned any of that. I don't want to put a bear. What's the point of putting a bear if I haven't earned it? I haven't earned it. So those are the things that I think strongly about our cultural identity. So when I go next year, I wanted to learn certain things about the land and what we can do as siblings to try and see whether we can do anything with it. Yeah, we have land there and a house there where relatives are staying and stuff like that. So with the house prices in Western countries like here just crazy, we want to see if there's an alternative. I've never thought about going to live in Samoa camp, never. But circumstances now look at, making me think, look at Niue is a classic saying, there's a lot of land in Niue, but nobody wants to go there because there's no real work. And I understand that. But as you go older, especially if you save, sufficient amount of money, you want to go to these sorts of balangis called, paradise. We escape paradise to come to these sorts of countries. To supposedly make, the dream, life and all this stuff, which is all a misnomer. It's all sort of crap, fake advertising. I want to sue somebody who say, come to New Zealand because, you can become rich. And, it's like, wow. But, it's just crazy. And so that's my other passion is try and resonate back of my cultural identity in that way, trying to relearn. And hopefully if I get a chance to go to Samoa, the first thing that I want to do is to visit my grandfather's grave. I wasn't there when he died. And that's, and I still visually have a face in my head. You know what I mean? And I still visually have that. But I don't want to forget. Yeah, I don't want to forget because it's important for me because that person was a part of my life when I was there, a part of my parents' life. So that's the first thing that I would do when I get there is to visit my grandfather's grave. And so it's important to try and rekindle and try to reconnect with these lost things, Cam. And I look at it now. I said, well, better now than never.
I heard on Niue especially, The Rock, it's a bit of an untouched gem in regards to tourism. I heard a lot of old people go there because there's no tourists there, but it's like, untouched spot.
I guess
hidden holiday spot.
If you want to live a sort of subsistence life, perhaps, fish, whatever, live off the land, I guess so. If you want to get off the grid, whatever, get away from the rat race, traffic, but it's easy said than done. In the world that we live in, money matters. It doesn't matter where you say, money doesn't make you happy. Really? Try living without money. Go and ask the people that have cardboard stands, in shops, outside shops in the middle of the road. Ask them if money doesn't make you happy. And that's the false illusion that we're told to immigrants to come to these sorts of places. I mean, classic example, America, supposedly the best country in the world. You look at them, my gosh, It's like, wow, what the hell would you want to go to America and live there? Yeah. So
They have the American dream, don't they?
yeah, supposedly,
You
but I
can
mean,
start from scratch.
the circumstances there are. If you're right time, right moment, yeah. But I mean, in countries like America, and countries like New Zealand, they would not be where they are if it wasn't for immigrants. It's that simple. Simple as that. Yeah. But our story in terms of immigrants in New Zealand is probably untold. It's not, it's you hear a lot of, when I was on my way here, for instance, Cam, I was thinking, in all my time in New Zealand, I've actually not really seen any streets that have an island name. Do you know what I mean? An island national name, I've never thought about this when I was on my way here, because the West has a history of Croatians and Yugoslavians and all these people that come build vines and Corbin's a classic example, but we also played our part. We as a people played our part, but that story is not really being told. We haven't really been given the honor of no real thanks. Who the hell is going to do the dirty jobs when the government back in the 60s or whatever changed the immigration laws, to bring islanders here to do the dirty jobs? Because the Bahalangis, the Kiwis are, oh no, we don't want to dirty my hands. Who are we going to do that?
That's a good point, because not even in South Auckland there's a
No.
Pacific Island street name.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, that's I hear, the stories about Dawn Raid, I'm learning more about doing Dawn Raid than a lot of other things. But I asked my family, because I lived in West Auckland for most of my life, all of my life, actually, since I came here. And we have never experienced that. We didn't experience that. And I asked my family, did we actually experience Dawn Raids? And they said, no, many South Auckland. You know what I mean?
Or Ponsonby,
Yeah,
when that happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Grayland.
So I was a little bit detached when the Dawn Raids issue came out, rather, because I didn't experience it.
Your thoughts on the Western world. Like if I bring these three words, you got the Western world, you got colonization,
Yeah.
and then you got capitalism.
Yeah.
Those three things go
Hand in hand.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it's because I always think about these things in terms of one way to live, and as opposed to how we're living now, or what we're trying to do with identity, diversity, and all that.
Yep.
Because the thing for me with diversity is it depends what they're talking about. Because I don't agree with forcing people to make up the numbers, to make up the the different sorts of people in a place. How I feel the diversity should be handled is you start from the ground. You start from schools. You start from the primary schools. If you need more islanders to be in this certain job, they encourage it down in the primary school level, and encourage that pathway.
Pay them.
Yeah, or point them that way. I mean, right now there's a reasons why there's so many Indians and Asians doing engineering, because they're the only ones coming out of school. Because if you want to change that, you can't force them not to be in these jobs because you need more islanders. You gotta start from the school.
Yeah. I mean, we are in the back foot when it comes to such aspirations. You talk about Indians who went through engineering school or doctor or whatever back in India. But the sad part is when I come to countries like here, they have to start again if they want to continue on pursuing their degrees. And the obstacles involved in that is huge. It's huge.
Like doing it all over again, school all over again.
And, English or whatever, they have to literally do supposedly the New Zealand way or the Australian way or the American way. You understand? And that's put off a lot of the immigrants who come to it. They touted, oh, come here, we'll get a job for you, don't worry, your qualifications will suit. But once they come here, completely different story. So they sold a lie. They sold some sort of an imaginary utopia, Yeah, but when they come here, it's completely different. Hence, that's why you see a lot of so-called qualified immigrants, taxi drivers, cleaners, supermarket workers. I work with a lot of them. A lot of them, they're wonderful, smart individuals. But yet their qualifications don't matter in the fields that they are qualified at or they excelled at school. And that's the sad part. But this is the problem with Western countries. The pandemic has exposed the weaknesses when it comes to such issues. Yeah. It's because we supposedly now wanting more immigrants to come to fill these positions that we have. But yet you're leaving obstacles here for them to make it hard for them to even get there. They would have spent thousands of dollars in application forms and whatever they need to do just to put their foot in the door. But even by putting their foot in the door, they still have to try and knock that door over to get their other foot in, And that's a problem with countries like New Zealand. It is just making it extremely difficult for immigrants to come into places like New Zealand. Extremely difficult. No?
So is that, when I talked about those three things, colonization, Western world and capitalism, was that a result of that? Is capitalism a result of these Asians or Indians coming with their Indian names, putting on the CV, and the Palangi looking at on that because they think communication.
It's funny, you know me as Tua. It's Tua. That's my last three letters of my name. My name that I have in my passport and citizenship form is Mototua. Yeah, my full name is Sinawe Ulumototua. That's my full name. Put that on any application form, Cam. How many do you think I will get back? Bugger all, if any. Yeah. Hence why I put the last three letters of my name to make it to sort of anglicize it, to make it for these Western people to have understand, easy to pronounce, and that's the thing that we have. Immigrants deal with is to try and we have to change certain things to fit in. And that saddens me. It does sadden me. And
or change the mindset.
Yeah, well, the mindset's still there, though. I mean, it's still racism, bigotry is still there, Cam. Even in my age, it's still there.
But then the campaign for diversity makes them think twice.
But again, I go back to diversity. Diversity is another word that's probably used too frequently. As I said to you before, I'm a believer. It's not about the color of somebody. It's not about the religion of somebody. It's about the background. It's about the background. That's what I see diversity is. You can get a Indian or Pakistan lawyer or business owner and stuff like that and represent a community, But has they actually worked in as a cleaner or taxi driver or road worker or social worker or those environments that have real people who are just struggling to live. Yeah, have they actually worked in those environments and talked to those people and what their aspirations are? And then that's the difference between myself and others. You bring back the colonization and capitalism and so forth. Obama, classic example. Obama. Now, when he was voted, do you imagine how much the American, African Americans, how many do you think thought, oh my gosh, a black man has been voted, our lives are going to be much better? How many do you think thought that when they voted for Obama?
All of them?
Yeah, exactly. And how many now think, oh, what a waste of time? You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter. Obama, black man, cool, wonderful story, read his history, stuff like that. But he was educated in the Western system. And that's the difference. He was educated in the Western system. He came through struggles, fair enough, same as his wife, but he was still educated in the Western system. He still didn't have that mindset of the real struggle of his ancestors and so forth. When you're educated in a certain system, you still have that overrides, overrules certain other things that you don't necessarily, or you should be thinking about, but put it aside. So I'm hoping, during my lifetime, Cam, I'm hoping to see a brown face as Prime Minister. And that's my hope. If I live long enough, and I'm hoping to see a brown face as a Prime Minister, that's when you really see the changes that we've been talking about for so long.
I think if that's going to happen, it has to come through Labour. It has to be someone high up on the list.
Yeah, but again,
But would Labour even have Savanda up there?
Absolutely.
High on the list.
Absolutely. I mean, tokenism, Calvin Davis, supposedly the Deputy Prime Minister. You got, Shane Ritty, who was the Deputy leader of National Party before Luxon came on board. Those are all token gestures, just to appease the brown folk. Oh, look, Māori here, we got one of your own, Oh, look, we got Calvin Davis, a brown face. Look, one of your own.
And this is why I criticize diversity, because it's forced.
Yeah.
Because they're only doing it just to please society, where society's going, because it's happening all over the world, especially Canada, America.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're big on this sort of thing,
I mean, the fact that some governmental organizations, want more women, to balance whatever. Yeah, cool. Yeah, but they have to earn it. And right now, the Labour government at the moment, they have the most brown faces that you see in any government in the past. Brown faces. They have more brown faces in these positions in government, high positions in government than you've ever seen in the past. Good, great. But what does it actually mean? And what would they actually do to benefit those that they supposedly represent? You understand? I'm a believer that if you are an islander, or if you are Māori in a position of an MP or cabinet minister, what are you actually going to do for someone like me? That's how I look at it. And I've said that to others in the past. I said, I don't expect you to, or I don't want you to vote for me because I'm family, or because you like me, or we're friends on Facebook or whatever. Yeah, I want you to consider the policies that you read to see whether it actually fits with what you believe in. And that's what I mean. Even if it costs me votes, Cam, that's to be honest in that. That's transparency. To be transparency, to be forthright without saying one thing in public, but you got your fingers crossed on the other, behind your back, and won't keep the promise. When you do get up there. No?
I think that's something people don't talk about. But they don't talk. They're good to point out the number of Pacificers up there in Parliament. And if you think about
the question is though, Cam, how many of them you actually hear? How many actually of them are here? Again, Labour has about 62 MPs, including Greens. But how many of these brown faces do you actually hear? It's about basically 5 Labour MPs that you actually hear: Ardern, Robertson, Woods, what's her name? Little, basically 5. Yeah. Others you barely hear. You're starting hearing the likes of Jackson, or even Calvin Davis. But all of them are silent. Why? Because they toe the line.
Or wait for an event like the apology, and you see William Seal up there. When you have an apology, and that's it.
But it's the other thing, and I'm disappointed. And again, I go back to how sometimes these people vote for the likes of Seal, Opito, and stuff. I would love to actually, if I had a chance to actually debate with a lot of these Māori MPs, simply to debate them on issues. Any issues, you name an issue, I want to debate with them. And I want to actually hear, and not being pre-scripted or given questions in advance for them to have a prepared reply. I actually want to be like this, random questions, you reply, I will give you a counter answer. And that's when that's what I think that I can offer in terms of if I'm lucky enough to get into politics. I'm not your average MP. I have no interest in towing the line. I have no interest in aligning myself or enriching myself in these sorts of positions, because you can. You can become rich in being, classic example, Collins. And a lot of these people would have made a lot of money in being, selected continuously, 9, 10, 12, 15, whatever years. Yeah? And that's what I want to actually hold them to account. And that's the other word that I find fascinating in politics is accountability. Yeah, what does it actually mean when you actually don't hold these people accountable? Yeah, it's an investigation behind the scenes that says, he's cleared of all charges or whatever, but and you can still carry on. How would that happen if you're in a job outside of Parliament? You'll be sacked. And I would love to debate a lot of those people in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know if you heard the news, but there's a lot of criticism coming to our government, the Labour Party, especially with the whole fiasco with the mandates, and a lot of angry people. The people I talk to, or people around me, that they don't like the whole situation. Like they're probably not going to vote Labour this time around. It's interesting. I mean, the people I talk to, I don't know.
But Cam, the thing about that is, though, when people, the anti-vaxxers or in that environment will say, I'm not going to vote Labour because blah, blah, blah. Well, who else are we going to vote for? Are you going to vote for National? And then you say, what do you think they would do if they were in a position what Labour went through? The same, if not even different. They may have opened the borders a lot earlier. Yeah, infections would have increased, possibly deaths may have increased a lot higher if National were in power during that time. So for them to say, I'm not going to vote for Labour just because mandates or lockdowns, I'm a believer in science. And this is the other thing. I see a lot of our people, even family members. I see a lot of people in that realm who believe in these theories and stuff like that. I said, well, unless you're a scientist or qualified health person, your opinion doesn't really resonate with me. We go to a doctor if we're sick because we believe the doctor is qualified enough to give us medicine or whatever, yeah? We don't suddenly, Google and see what we need because the symptoms on Google and say, oh, yeah, okay, that must be right because it's on Google. It doesn't work that way. Yeah? So, for these people to think that any other government will do anything different, no. And sadly, it's become like that. I mean, Disney church movement is a classic example. They're overwhelmed with all these theories in a lot of these people's heads, and simply say, well, really, what would you have done? The industry that I work in, I worked through the pandemic. Yeah, I'm asthmatic, so I wore masks. 7 days. I work 7 days. And that's, so I had to live through that issue, but I did it simply to try and be a team player and to try and help mitigate the spread of coronavirus. So I don't regret it. I don't, if it happens again, and there will likely be another pandemic in the future. If it happens again, then I'll do the same again. I'm hoping that it's possibly an inquiry that we'll have to see whether they can do things a little bit differently and see what they can learn from what they've done in the last 2 years. That needs to be done so that we, the public, can be reassured that the government has our back when it comes to any future pandemics, because there will be future diseases out there that will come.
The only thing I heard about them was not having a alternative.
Yeah,
like there was no alternative. It was either get the vaccine or you lose your job.
Yeah, I mean, I
I mean, there was no like, okay, if there was no pathway for people that didn't want to get the vaccine because they were scared of their health, or they didn't trust the vaccine, or that they had advice that said that you're allergic to so and so, whatever it was. But then, and I felt for these people. I mean, for me personally, I got the vaccine and I got the second one, and I wasn't scared. I just like you, like just go with it and just move on.
Yep.
And because I have to work, blah blah blah.
Yep.
I had no, I wasn't against it. It is what I had to do. It is what it is.
Yep.
But some people had problems with it.
Yep.
And I was shocked. I was shocked that Labour didn't have an alternative for people that didn't want to take it. There was, stay inside, work from home, wear a mask everywhere you go. Don't touch other people.
See, my counter reply to that, I don't understand when I hear that these people that were stood down from jobs, health, police, whatever, didn't have an alternative. They had an alternative. You either take the vaccine or you don't. That's an alternative. There's no other C. Yeah, it's either A or B. That's an alternative. The other problem I have with a lot of those people that are in the front lines during the pandemic is that they work in environments that uses science-based information. Yeah, nurses that didn't want to take the vaccines, but yet they would have studied years, yeah, medical information, whatever they needed to qualify. That's science, yeah. You have a lot of other people that would have decided not to vaccinate in environments that police, for instance, and stuff like that. Again, you're working with people and you're working with information that are important to those roles. If you didn't believe in those information, why are you doing those roles? And that's probably the most concerning part is there are people that are in these priority occupations that also have alternative beliefs. Alternative beliefs, fine, cool. But when you put it out there, it's like, well, you're a doctor. Why, why do you have an alternative belief to a injury or to a ailment that you study for years? So that's my argument when people say that to me.
When I knew a few people that didn't get vaccinated and did lose their jobs, and just waited it all out. Now they've lifted the mandates and they can probably go back to work or anything. But there was a lot of angry people out there, and you saw them at the protests when they went down to the parliament outside, and for a month they were down there or something. Well, that was, and there's a few people down there.
But don't underestimate the people, the amount of people that you see. Yeah, don't think that's a lot. A lot is a word that you can use to counter argument. A very small percentage, 2,000, 1,500, whatever. Yeah, so. The only reason why the likes of those protests were given was because they made a lot of noise. Simple as that. If it wasn't so noisy, if they didn't end up camping out for a period of time in Parliament, you wouldn't see the coverage that they had.
One of the arguments was the control of the government on us being told what to do, and that was a lot of the argument against what people thought the mandates were all about. That control factor of the government, and people go down the rabbit holes, go down conspiracy theories and all of that, talk about the New World Order and all that. I heard them all on social media, and I just ignore it. But people did think about that. But it also made me think about, okay, if the government was really gonna control people, like if it's like something the government can do to tell people what to do, or take something from people, they won't give it back. If you know what I mean.
I'm fascinated when I hear those sort of statements, because I've also conversed with a lot of people that feel that same way as well. And my reply to that is that, have you lived in Russia? Have you lived in Iraq? Have you lived in the Philippines? Have you lived in all these other countries have you lived in the Middle East? All these countries that are run by authoritarian rulers, dictators. Have you lived in that? You know, we use that word a lot during the pandemic time, control. But yet, have you lived in those countries that actually, you can't voice your opinion? You know, the current war in Ukraine is a classic example. The citizens of Russia can't voice their opinion, because the government will track or through whatever means and find dissidents. You can't even protest. Many thousands of protests people have been now in prison. No charges, nothing. So we these people who talk about control, I'm really fascinated, about. So if this was control, we wouldn't be able to do the things we still able to do in New Zealand. I'm fascinated when people say, freedom of speech, really, but you still are able to voice certain opinion. You just don't need to tell lies to try and convince other people because that's misinformation. I don't expect you to try and convince me by telling me, all this crap because you read it or somebody has told you. If we want to debate, we debate just like grown-ups. And that's the problem with and social media and media in general has exacerbated that problem, has really, really blown this up to a point where normal Joe blogs have now think they are experts in a lot of things, and again, a lot of those people that you would see in the protests in Parliament, they would not have a grown-up discussion like we are having, because I know if we would have somebody who is anti-vaxxer, it will become loud. It will become quite a sort of fight to try and who is right and wrong. So they are still able to believe what they need to believe in, and that's fine. In a lot of other countries, you're not even allowed to believe in that. It's all hush hush, keep it under wraps, and stuff like that. And that's what amazes me. And the fact that when you mentioned, the government is trying to control us. Well, your credit cards, your S-Plus cards, all those contracts that you signed to join internet and all that, Netflix and all those things, all those things are out there. All those things. And the police, for instance, when they investigate certain crimes, homicides or whatever, do you not think that they actually can go to the banks and get the information of certain people that they're looking for? Yeah? Do you not think that they can get a warrant from a judge to wiretap gangs that are listening? Do you not think? It happens. It's happening now. So for anybody to say that the government is concerned, just look around you. Everything that we do now, it is a paper trail. Not so much a paper trail, but more of a algorithm trail that you were talking about before. Everything now is basically in cloud. So yeah, it's too late. It's literally too late.
You're making me think about some types of control here. I think about the no specky law. Yeah. I mean, I understand where that came from because kids were dying, but to me it was kind of like a way of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a small number of kids dying due to domestic violence or not in the right environment, but then it's not the whole story. Yeah, and they made the no smacking law for that, but then it interrupts other families that actually use it for the right way. For discipline, it's especially in the Pacific Island. Yeah. Pacific Island culture.
We never understood that. The island culture never quite understood.
Yeah, and they did.
Because it's ingrained in us that disciplinary action is part of rearing children. Simple as that. I was hidings when I was growing up and stuff like that. I learned the hard way. You didn't, you get more hidings.
I believe it works for us.
It worked, but the problem is though, Ken. I mean, the smacking law came at a time where babies were dying through domestic violence. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot, and we have a shameful record of a lot of young, especially brown kids, that have been bashed by people that should have looked after them. So the intention of that law was the right intention. It was. The problem is that you're never going to stop some people, violent people. Doesn't matter how,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
doesn't matter. And that's the problem. When you try and fix something that the intention is a good intention, but the outcomes down the road is still the same. Human beings being human beings ain't going to change simply because you put out a law you can't smack your child. Ain't going to change. There's kids still dying through the hands of people, of parents or stepfathers or whatever. It's the same thing. It's no different to saying, wear your seatbelt, for instance. Yeah. All the information says wear your seatbelt saves a chance to save your life if you're involved in an accident. Yeah, that's there. Information is there. But a lot of crashes that you see now, especially with a lot of young people who flee in cars, from police or whatever, who don't put seatbelts, they don't care. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you can put up there. Ultimately, it comes down to individual people who decide to make, who decide to change their outcomes by changing their way of doing things. So, I was against the no smacking law simply because of that reason. And now it's basically hasn't really done. A study that came out earlier, I think this year, said the no smacking law hasn't really done anything.
Yeah.
And Sue Bradley, like I said, thought that this was a game changer. No, it wasn't. Like I said, sometimes you can't change human behavior. And that's simple, If you want to be effective in things like to stop actually violence against kids, then look at changing the other outcomes. Poverty and all these things, wages of people that, living in motels and stuff like that. Look at those things that have an influence on people why they are down. Meth, drugs, unemployment, all these things are associated to things like domestic violence, alcohol, for instance, and stuff like that. They're all connected. But ultimately, it comes down to individual responsibilities.
I agree with you 100% because when things are bad, these are the first places that are affected. And those outcomes, like you say, is going to happen. Like when you read the news and you see all this gang violence around the city, the amount of gangs now, gang trouble. The reason why there's a lot of them now is because of the economic situation, and the public is calling for the cops to do something about it, but they're doing something about it at the top end. They're not doing something at the bottom.
See, what the public don't quite understand is that they only see and react to what they see if it's shown on television for a lot of times. Yeah, but we also forget or don't or probably not, don't want to know is that the police actually arrest a lot of these youth. They've actually arrested a lot. Yeah, and if you think of it in terms of the actual crime rate, ram rates are not that big up there. They're not. If people get hurt, then it becomes a different story. But again, we go back to the backgrounds of these kids and stuff like that. When I was growing up, I've never heard, I've never seen the amount of homeless, the amount of drug use, the amount of truancy, the amount of kids, robbing cars and stuff like that. Never seen that. Why? Because our culture was strict. It was very strict. And now, as I said to you a little bit,
and they can spec us, our parents.
Exactly. But when you're living in a country where it's a little bit more, you're given more independence to young kids. No such thing as independence in island culture. None. Children don't have a say. They don't have a say. Yeah, you got to do as you're told, or you get the consequences. It's simple. You get a warning. Simple. But the Western world don't quite understand that. They don't understand. Time out, don't do it again, and laughing. Kids as young as 5 know exactly that adults can't hit them. No, well, you can't hit me, It's just, and that's the problem, So we can put a law or legislation and trying to fix or improve one issue, but then it makes it worse on other problems. So yeah.
You expect the government to have an economic guy to know what's going to happen. Like they know outcomes of, okay, we do this law, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. So how do they? It seems like they don't have that.
See, you would think so. I mean, in today's world now, I bring that word algorithms and data and all these information and surveys and stuff like that. They got consultants and specialists on a range of issues. Yeah. So any government is not short on information if they want to find out certain information about certain things. They're not, because you've got studied reviews of a lot of things from overseas, and a lot of laws and policies are based on things that are happening overseas, or information from universities and so forth. So information is there. The problem is that governments are wary of putting certain things out that may impact on how many people that will vote. And that's the other problem I have about politics. It's not doing things that supposedly is good for people, but good for certain voters who a particular government at the time will want them to vote for them in the next election. And that's the problem.
Because when they come back to the no smacking law, you look at all the outcomes that's happened over the years because of that. With the teachers that can't discipline the kids at school, and they get out of hand. I heard that the rule is when a kid in class gets out of hand, the teacher has to get all the other kids out of the classroom and let him destroy the class, like throw the chair around and everything. But for the safety of the other kids, the teacher has to just take them out and let them be.
I was heading to become a teacher back in, I think it was 2005. I went to Epsom campus because people thought that I would make a good teacher. In my experience here, I never finished the term, but it cost me 10 grand, and I realized that, what the hell am I doing here? It was nice enough for thinking that I could teach, but when I realized that the preparation work, 3 months in advance or whatever, I haven't got time for that. And I was still working full time. And the biggest problem with the likes of education at the moment is how much changes, the constant changes that we're seeing now. New curriculums coming out all the time, new things that New Zealand teaching governance trying and put in, to schools. The schools are under, especially state schools, they're under pressure at the moment to try and make targets. Yeah, every student in the public school is basically is money to the school. So they try and make sure that they try and have enough people there to get the funding that they need. So that's important to them. So they try not to rock the boat in terms of trying to implement certain things that will not necessarily be good, for their bosses. And that's always part of the problem with education system. I grew up, when discipline, caning, and strapping. Back then, we grew up back then, and we learned. But in today's world, you don't, you do. What do you learn? As much as I don't advocate that sort of discipline now, but some kids will play out, and that's a simple truth. Some kids, unless they find out the core reason why they're playing out, then you ain't going to fix the problem by simply, disciplining them in the way that we grew up.
You're running for Henderson Massey. How are you finding the education system out west of the schools and the kids?
It's difficult to say. I can only go by by what I read and by what the information I get from talking to younger people. I can't get around, the desal system.
Because they're getting rid of it, eh?
Yeah, supposedly. And
So how's that going to work? Because I understand that this how system works. The lower you are, the more money you get from the government. Because you're in a lower socioeconomical area. You get more money from the government, but even that doesn't help really, eh?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, again, they're throwing a problem, and I understand the reason. But how would that make a student who live in Aotearoa and then go into school supposedly heavily government funded? How would that make that particular student feel, knowing full well that they are there simply because the government is giving their money for them to be there? No, they're not there because of the possibility that they can achieve or attain the merits that they know or excel in the subjects that they know they can be good at. Yeah. I mean, again, when it comes to funding schools, it's all about numbers, bums on seats. That's what it's all about. And when I hear, it brings me it does become a little annoying because schools who are funded, heavily funded, during that sort of system, again, the public don't view them as backwards. Yeah. I mean, you don't find the same issues in schools that are not funded, that are from private donations or whatever. Yeah, so completely different outcomes from those schools that are lower, from schools that are higher. And I'm a believer that they should pay. It doesn't matter whether a teacher teaches a low decile school or high decile. It should be equal. A really, really good teacher can teach in a low decile school, but pay them, sufficiently. Yeah, don't pay them less than a teacher that's up here, that's teaching in a school that's up here. Because all kids in low decile socioeconomic areas deserve the right to learn as much as they can.
Is that what was happening? That a lot of these schools were getting the quality of teachers weren't good enough.
Yeah, there's always that part. I mean,
and obviously the resources weren't there.
Yep, and that's it. And that's the fight. Teachers. I mean, when teachers have to use their own money to pay for certain things, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Huh? I mean, charter school, another classic example. I was against charter schools when it was first implemented, but after reading and seeing how they actually worked, that's actually a good outcome. But once Labour came in, they shut it. Again,
remind me of the charter schools again.
It's those schools that are.
Can you move the thing up?
Yeah, it's those schools that are like military schools and stuff like that are not funded by government per se. I mean, anybody can start a school. Destiny Church want to start one. So it's a little bit different than state schools and private schools.
Mm. And what was the problem with them?
The government reckons it didn't really achieve much. The outcomes didn't. Well, I mean, I got a feeling it was more because National Act initiated, so they wanted to rub the noses and get rid of it. So again, ideology surpasses what should have been actually a continuation of a good idea.
So, do you know what system they're going to use now? The schools, the funding system. If they're going to scrap the desal, how are they going to run it?
No,
now?
I'm not privy to that sort of info. I mean, I would like to think that they would have found a system that's more equitable across the board. Again, if they're going to fund a lot of these low decile schools, they also have to pay teachers sufficient salary for them to actually make it worthwhile, to come and teach these schools. There's no point in saying, oh, I'm passionate about, I love teaching and passionate about children. When you enter any job, it's all about the money. It's no longer about passionate about anything anymore. It's all about, how much money can I get so that I can pay my bills and actually live. That's what it's all about. And the likes of teachers and nurses and police in general, or corrections officers, these sorts of people in these sorts of roles have been underpaid for a long, long time. No? And a lot of people, most people would not want to enter in these sorts of professions, simply because that's one reason. But also simply because now they've taken on too much, that they become extra roles now in their part of their roles, surrogate mothers and feeding the kids and whatever, and not necessarily just teaching. And that's probably added a lot of pressure on a lot of these people into that profession.
Do you know the quality of schools around here, around West Auckland? Because I went to Waitakere. I know Henderson High's changed a lot.
Yeah.
When I was at school, it wasn't a really good school back then. It had a bad name, and it was a bit rough there. No school uniform back then.
Yeah.
But now I think they've upped their game the last few years.
Yeah, they have. I would say that they have, simply because a lot of these schools now have been given on notice. You either improve certain things or we shut you down. It's that simple. And a lot of schools out in rural areas have also, if you don't have enough kids in the field, then that's insufficient. We're not going to fund you, or we shut you down. So it's become like that, and now hence the immigration policies that governments like in New Zealand want to do. And more people means more money. It's that simple. I find that quite hard to stomach sometimes. 5 million people so-called in New Zealand. How many is too many? 7? 10? So more people means more problems, more issues. And I blame a lot of past councils and past governments for not sorting out the problems that we have now, 30, 40, 50 years ago. A lot of the issues back then are still here. So they didn't sort it out then simply because, again, ideology. Not have the foresight to think ahead, of what could be or what we should do. But no, we can't build. It's all about money. Too expensive. Bloody things are expensive now. If you could have, built it 20 years ago, it would be less expensive. Too late now when you're asking, to build it now, because it's just the money. Yeah. If any of the mayor, like Brown, gets in Auckland, becomes mayor, he's prepared to shut down everything that are happening, at the moment. Why would you want to shut down, the tunneling and all the infrastructure that's being built out? You can't. It's too late.
You want to shut all that now, like the train.
Yeah. You can't. You can't shut down. It's too late now. And so, a stadium. Leo Malloy wanted to, build a stadium. And I'm for a stadium, but get the business community involved. Get them to front up with the money, or the council can do, the basic things. But get them to front up the money. That way it's a win-win.
Talking about money, I feel like the government has failed the essential government services, like education, the fire department with the strikes I had recently. What's the other one? Yeah, education's a big one. Health. So the nurses get underpaid. A lot of these services get underpaid.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know why they don't make these services the priority, because these are the services that run the whole country.
You would think so.
So I don't know what's going on.
Because again, governments are ideology driven.
But instead I see the roads getting made. It's like, okay, wasn't that important? Was it that important? On the priority list, education and health is going to be on the top. All
election phases basically include education, health, crime. Those are basically the three most prominent issues that you're constantly going to see. The problem with politicians in all these parties is the pet projects that they want to do during a campaign period. They'll make promises, but where would the money come from? And the only place where the money will come from will be cutting costs from other sectors. It's always been like that with past and present governments. They will cut costs from health or from police or from other sectors simply to save money so that they can tell the people, well, here we are, we can build this because we have the money. It's always been like that, and that's the problem. Classic examples are hospitals. Hospitals should never be in the way that they are now. It should always be done or fixed, be top of the line, important. That's important for people. But yet, again, when they cut certain things to try and save costs so they can do other things, that's the problem, and the promises a lot of these people make, like I said, they're not going to be forthright for you. They'll make promises to your face, but when it comes to if they get in power, they say, well, we've just read the books, looked at the books, and we can't do what we promised you, because there's not enough money here for whatever reason.
But why take it out of the most important service?
Yeah, ask the politicians that. But they'll give you an answer that it has nothing to do with what the reality. They'll give you an answer, and part of the problem with politicians is they talk all this crap. It's all about political jargon, lawyer, that layman's people like ourselves will not necessarily understand. You try and explain a lot of those things down to people in South Auckland, they won't understand, Cam. Unless you actually put it in a language or in a way that they understand.
Like, they don't go to public hospitals, they go to private hospitals.
Yeah, exactly. So we need possibly a health services that caters for Pacifica. Like you see now with Māori.
Well, that's interesting. That's two interesting dynamics here, because Pacifica's been here since the 60s, 50s, before that influx in the 60s, right? Coming in for those duty jobs. But then you got you got Māori that have progressed since the oppression years. They couldn't speak Māori, they get beaten up. Now they got some of their land back. Tainui, especially, they had to buy back their land. They got stolen from them back in the days, but they got it back. Now they're doing development. So I think it was Alan Duff that said that the indigenous people in New Zealand are doing way better than any other indigenous around the world. Like, take the Aborigines.
I agree.
Like, they got it way worse over there.
I think Māori have achieved or have got a far better deal with the treaty with the Crown than, as Duff said, than Aborigines or even the First Nations people up in America, and so forth. Simply because the Crown back then, pre-treaty days, they were prepared to negotiate. I think the problem with that is how much in the fine print do we actually understand in terms of the treaty, because if you read the treaty, it's simple. And when it's translated into English, the words may not necessarily be what the words in Māori were, because so as we evolve as people, people will see the treaty as not necessarily relevant now than it was before, and you hear a lot of other people say, Māori have on the gravy train and all this stuff, and I love the fact that these Māori are taking a stand on their own culture and standing up for their language and everything else that comes with it. I'm a believer that te reo people should learn, or te reo should be taught in schools. But I'm not necessarily on board with forcing it as a curriculum subject on people, because I believe, like I believe in Samoan language or other Pacifica language, that our people should learn our own language. Yeah, that's important. I mean, what's the point of Asians learning Māori? What's the point of that? You know, what achievement? It basically means nothing. You know, because they just see it as something fun to do. But we as a people need to also learn our own culture and do it ourselves, rather than giving it away to other immigrants who have no real history or connection to our own history.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. The Treaty of Waitangi, because there was talk after the Queen passed away about New Zealand becoming a republic.
Yeah.
If we did choose to leave the crown, because I think after the Queen's passing, everyone was like, "Oh, Charles III, no one likes that guy."
Yeah.
So it's been on the news and been talk on the radio about New Zealand becoming a republic. But then it's interesting because if we do as a country, that treaty isn't valid anymore, because it's a agreement by the Crown and Māori. With the Crown gone, well, how are we gonna sort this out?
I mean, who said it won't be relevant? I mean, it's part of Aotearoa New Zealand. It's part of that.
Except for the Crown. The Crown be gone.
The problem is
part.
It can be amended. That's not a problem. I mean, it can be amended. I mean, the treaty should. There was talk about entrenching the treaty into the Constitution, making it part of the Constitution, New Zealand's Constitution, and I'm all for that. Because there's no way that if we go down the republic path, there's no way any future government will do that. No way, because
is it hard? Because it's too hard.
It won't be too hard. Simply because of the pushback that they will get, massive pushback. If you think that the foreshore and seabed was a catalyst for Māori, to even form, or to even a catalyst for a lot of Māori to be up in arms, to the point that they started a party. Māori Party was born from that. If you thought that was the changing of things that Māori would voice against, such a possible deal of getting rid of the treaty, that will be a massive fight back from Māori in general. So no, I'm a believer. It still is a part, and it should be a part of every governance role in the future. So, and I'm actually Republican by background, by nature. I believe there should be we will become a republic. It was only a matter of time to wait until the Queen passed away, and now it's a time for that debate to come. Australia, the last time they had a referendum, they just missed out on the referendum to become a republic. So we tend to follow Australia on certain things. John Key once said, it will be inevitable that New Zealand will become a republic in the future. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Whether it be in our lifetime or my lifetime rather than yours, is speculative at the moment. But it will be. So. But the issue I have with that is if we ever become or go down that path to become a republic, what sort of republic will it be? Will it be the one that we're seeing in America at the moment? I tend to think, no, I don't want to go down that path, because you're talking about requiring another house chamber in Parliament, so there'll be two. Like what they're having in America, Congress and Senate. I believe that there are certain things in the Republican system that we can implement, but still vote for a prime minister. And that's how I see it.
So Will we have a limitation on terms? Like 2 terms, that's it?
No, I'm a believer in term limits. I've always been, even now, even how we do our politics. I'm a believer that the Prime Minister should be only allowed to do 2 terms. I'm a believer that any MP in the electorate should be only sit to 2 or 3 terms. Even if I'm lucky enough to get into politics, I want to serve at least 2, minimum 3 terms. That's 9 years. That's how I look at it. And then, leave so that other people can come. It's important that we constantly revolve people constantly. So that they can bring new, fresh eyes and ideas. But when you have people that have been there, like Winston, 40 plus years, I wonder, well, we don't want to be like America where you have senators and Congress people be there to bloody, 40, 50 years. Biden's 80, he's been there since, for 50 years. What have you actually done in that time? And that's the part of the problem I have with politicians. Tell me, what have you done in the time that you're there? So it's important for me. Term limits is and even election periods is a thing of me as well. 4 years, go 4 years rather than 3.
Whatever happens, it's gonna be exciting. I guess it'll be exciting for the country to have that process going into being a republic.
I would like to think that it would be exciting in terms of in your time, because a lot of changes in your time will happen in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, Cam. Even your kids and stuff like that. A lot of the things that hopefully that they will implement soon, if not in the next 5 years, will start to impact not only you as you grow older, but also your children. So exciting, yeah. The proof is in the pudding. If I live to 80 or 90 and I get a chance, and I think that of our conversations that we just had now, and I think that the changes that I saw, since I've been here since 1975, to the changes that I've seen now, and to hopefully the changes that I'll see possibly in the next 20 years, then I can actually make a judgment and say, well, was it good? Were these changes actually worth it?
How about now? How about from 75 to right now? It's been going downhill.
No, I mean
going uphill.
The housing,
that's
massive. The traffic is massive. I'm a believer. I'm a believer in terms of housing. The government are the only ones that they can actually fix that problem. They actually regulate the housing market.
Bring in what's the equity tax?
No, they could have built that. They didn't have the guts to do that. They didn't have the guts because it was the right thing to do. Capital gains was the right thing to do. As a lot of OECD countries, that was right. But again,
a lot of countries have that law.
Absolutely.
But us, we don't.
We don't. We have a form of capital gains as you saw the bright lines test. But again, it's tweaking to make it look like that we're doing something.
And I remember Labour promised to put that in. Yep. And then they pulled out last minute.
Yep.
Because they weren't getting the votes, maybe, I don't know.
No, I mean, they weren't. They didn't actually promise. They didn't actually, and that's a fearful of some of these policies that any party will put out. They don't want to test the waters. I mean, National is in a good place at the moment because they want to, it's easy for them to put out certain things different than what Labour's doing because they want to see Labour do things and see what their reactions from the public, where National would do differently because they know that they can't do the same as Labour do, because again, it's all about votes. Three Waters will be a contentious issue next year, very contentious issue. I mean, I'm a believer that it should be because of the problem that we had in Havelock North. Our infrastructure, our water infrastructure, our sewage, and all that is bad, very bad. Several years of not fixing these problems. You've got sewage seeping into beaches when it's heavy rains. We live in a country that is going to be heavy rains. We already having it now. And until those infrastructure are built, and this is the other issue I have with governments trying to bring in immigration. How the hell you want to bring in more people when we can't fix the problems that we have now? Yeah, I don't understand that. Immigration, fine, but put a hold on that. Put a hold on that until we fix the infrastructure that we need to bring in more people. But big business talks. Everything is run by business, and that's the other problem. It's not about doing for what is the people now. It's all about the bottom line for businesses that will look at what they can get in the future.
Big business talks. Well, so what are they trying to tell us? They're trying to tell us to start a business? That's the only way out? Because once you start a business, they can listen to you.
Workers is money. Workers is money. Workers is profits. That's what it is. It's no different to religion. You need people in churches. You need people to give tithings. That's a business. It's no different. So business understands that for them to increase their profits, they need people. They need workers. For them to expand. And that's what's based on our economies in a lot of ways. Is that we supposedly look at how wealthy we are, supposedly us, by the economic stats that we hear all the time. If we do well economically, we are supposedly doing well economically. But that's a false statement. We don't do well economically. Wage-wise and stuff like that. It just doesn't match inflation. And
inflation is up right now, and the cost of living is up. Right now, our dollar's dropped. I think.
It has. It is. It's dropped for the lowest since 40 years. And
I think American dollar's half now.
Yeah.
$1 is 50 cents.
I mean, who wants to travel? I mean, I got a lot of Indian friends who travel in India, and there, the rupee is quite high. So even though they can make some money here and then travel to India, their money will double. So it's worthwhile for them.
The only way around that, the dollar drop, is for us to export, right? So how can we get the Pacific Islanders in Auckland to export? We can't take advantage of that low dollar.
The
only people that are going to benefit is like Frontiera.
Yeah.
Now our milk is cheaper to the Americans.
But by improvising, by being entrepreneurial, by being innovative. I mean, it's important to note that I want to see a lot of Pacific Islander in these sorts of high-end roles. CEOs of Frontiera, a classic example. We don't have people of Pacifica background in these sorts of positions. And we have to ask why. Again, we come from a culture that doesn't really push our kids to achieve certain things. We don't. We're not a hardcore culture like the Indians in Asia. We want you to become a doctor. We want you to become an engineer, and we'll support you or whatever. And a lot of them do. They achieve that simply because it's a pushback from their parents. We're not that inclined. And we don't have that independent thinking mindset that Palangis have. Our kids are not necessarily, they're not allowed to actually think for themselves per se. They are, the parents have that influence in their decisions making in the future. So that's part of the problem that we have. You look at a classic example of All Blacks and Warrior Island players and stuff like that. Lovely attributes, physical, whatever. But if you listen to them, if you actually listen to them, and I always wonder, okay, how long did you stay at school? And no disrespect, Cam, but that's what I'm saying. I always wonder why there wasn't a Ireland All Black captain for a period of time. Never, and yet we are heavily represented in those teams. Yeah, again, it's about being forceful, not being forceful by physical force, but being forceful from here. And that's what we lack. That's what we lack. I see Oscar Kitely has put his name up to run in Henderson.
Under Labour.
Yeah, under Labour. And again, wonder why. Why, for someone who is in the media in the spotlight, do you not trust your name, do not trust yourself,
I see.
your name.
Do independent.
Rather
Go
than,
independent.
but having said that, is that Labour was smart enough to knock on his door and say, Oscar, if you come with us, we'll make sure we'll pay for all resources to put your name out there, blah, blah. You don't have to spend nothing. Knowing full well that they can utilise his public profile. Yeah? Who is the other name? All Black up in South Auckland. Is that name? Muleina?
Mills Mulean.
No, the other one, the hooker, Kevin.
Oh, Kevin
Milam.
Milam. Yeah.
He's also standing.
Oh, is he?
I think in
Oh.
Tapakura. Again, public profile, cool, sweet. And probably a lot of our islanders will vote simply because of their public face. That's it. Not because of the values or whatever he offers, simply because of that face. And, or possibly, he'll say the right things that those people will actually resonate with. No? But again, if ever I had a chance to debate with a lot of these people, I'm sort of I'm different to them because I don't necessarily will follow the guidelines in terms of what I believe in. No, not say what you want to hear, say what you should be hearing.
How long have you been into politics? Like
The last 10 years.
last 10 years? And what sort of interest did you have before 10 years? Were you just reading?
Yeah, just working.
Were you following?
I mean, I only went to enter 2016 by-election because I felt at that time I was confident enough. And that's part and parcel of what it is. It's about confidence.
And did you have things you wanted to change? You saw?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I actually want to see how certain things work. I mean, it's one thing reading. I do a lot of reading. One thing's reading, but you actually want to see the mechanisms of civic issues that you see work in our the governance in local and national apartheid. So that's the main reason why, and I want to see whether I could actually implement or try and change certain things that will have a positive impact, not only for my people, but for people that I work in environments in the past and present. And that's the thing, So I care about disabilities. Disability is about an issue that I care about. I have a lot of friends who are disabled, and that's another issue that we there's lack of access and stuff like that.
You mean building access and
not only that,
services?
Yeah, not only that, services. Again, there's a lot of talk about all those things from all these parties. The problem is when it comes to the crunch, nothing's done. Nothing's done. And politics, all about talk. That's the problem about politics. It's all about talk. Nothing really gets done. No.
Do we have a thing in America like they have the lobbying going on? Yeah. Do we have a big lobbying culture here? Yeah. Is that in local government too? Is it? Really? Oh.
Lobbying. A lot of those groups, what was it? The Citizens and Ratepayers. A lot of these other groups are sort of funded in some sense from affiliates from some of these parties, but also some of them are formed by donations of corporations and things like that. So we have a lobbying. There's a lot of lobbying in terms of businesses and wealth people donating money, as you know, but also behind the scenes. Every big industry who want to try and have an impact or influence a policy will be knocking on MPs' doors. Always knocking on Labour's door, on parties' doors. All the lunches or dinners that they have pay $5,000 or $10,000, to
attend.
Yeah, to attend or to have some time with 5 minutes or whatever with the Prime Minister. It's all big money. But namely wealthy donors and corporations do that. Simply they want to have a seat at the table so that they can have the ear of a minister who can or may not influence certain policy that will impact their business. Classic example, clear. One of the other things that I'm against or that I hate is Luxon. Classic example. Luxon is a wealthy man, millionaire, 7 properties. 7. And one of the things that always fascinates me, that when these people enter politics, why would they enter politics? Yeah, reason is that so that they can, if they are in power, hopefully maintain or change certain policies that will not necessarily impact them in certain business arrangements that they have. Yeah, that's why they enter politics. Or to also gain the perks that all these MPs, if you are in there for a period of time, the perks that they get, none of these other people in industries get. The pension system that they get, none of them. We don't have the benefits of the pension that they get. And they still getting paid even when they leave. The taxpayer still pays these people when they leave politics. And that's the thing that really pisses me off.
That was probably the reason why I thought why John Key ran, or John Key became Prime Minister, because the way he left was a bit dodgy. Because everything that guy did, I thought, okay, he's the Prime Minister.
Yep.
But, maybe 60% of his decisions is for him and his own family.
Yep.
Or his to better his wealth or better his situation,
All these people are high achievers, no different to Luxor, no different to... They are high achievers, yeah? They want to attain or to maintain that wealth or that power, yeah? And the funny thing is, though, when... the likes of John Key's a millionaire, with something 55 mil plus, whatever, So he's not short of money. But as a former Prime Minister, 9-10 years or whatever, he still gets paid by the taxpayer still a lot of money. Still a lot of money.
How much is the Prime Minister salary? Is it 180 or something?
No, it's, I think, 400.
Oh, really?
Plus, Prime Minister. I think the mayor gets 2 plus, or something like that. And they, and just Msinda is not short of money now, And all these MPs are not short of money, So for them to say, oh, they're struggling, rubbish, You are in a better position than a lot of people, much better position. But the likes of John Key, who left as a former, Prime Minister, we still earn a lot of money that the taxpayer is still paying for life, perks for a lot of these MPs, who would have possibly became MPs for about 3 terms, they, flights, international flights, 90% discount for you and your partner for life, domestic travel, about 10 flights, free for life. What other industry has these? You got, ex-MPs around in the 70s who are still alive, still being paid by taxpayers. How is that not fair? Yeah?
And tax is a big one too, because tax is part of business, is part of wages, is part of salary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that, as I said, I'm a believer that none of these people are special. I don't care. And this is the problem about politics now, is that there's an element of celebrity connection to these people. Yeah, you see them a lot in social media and paper or whatever, the news, whatever. Yeah, I don't care whether you are MP or whatever. You're not special. You enter these sorts of realms simply to do a job for a certain amount of people. It doesn't mean that you need to be seen as something special. You're not. I look at entering politics as a vocation. It's something that I want to do, but I don't want to spend a lot of my life doing it. Yeah, I just want to do what I can to change or to achieve things, and then get out for the next person to come in. And that's what I want to do. But a lot of these people have taken the fact that that they in social media or that in papers and stuff as anything, So we've put these people up here now, up there with professional sports people and stuff like that, or music musicians and stuff like that. Why would we do that? And that's I could never understand that. But that's part of the social media and media environment we have at the moment. I know a lot of people who do a lot of good work behind the scenes, but they will never get the accolades or the be in the limelight. They just do it because they do it. It's the right thing to do. And those are the people that I hold in high regard. Those are the people, not these people who want. Oh, look at me. So, yeah.
As an independent, do you have a team behind you?
No.
Like when you speak of these people that are behind the scenes, like would you grab some of these people to be part of your team?
I mean, if I'm unlucky enough to make it this year, the next year is the goal that I want to set. I'm looking at getting someone on board to increase my profile in terms of social media, output and stuff like that, because I don't know that, and I'm looking at saving some money or asking for donations. Again, that's something that I'm not 100% on, because I don't particularly like asking people to help me, put some money into such things. Because I'm a believer that, if you donate, that's nice. But, you donate because you believe in certain things that I'm, fronting up for. But I don't, very few people give a lot of money without something in return. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem that we have in politics, is that a lot of money is going behind the scenes that you just don't know how much that has influenced policies by governments. And again, if I see it, I want to expose it. I want to hold people to account. And I literally want to hold people to account. I don't want to sort of say it in a way that, look at Tua standing up for it. No, I want to literally call these people by name, and say, you are the reason why certain things are not done. You are the reason why money is gone to other things and stuff like that. I want to hold these people in account, We have privileges, MPs have privileges in Parliament where they can say a lot of things in Parliament, but they can't get sued. They can't get sued. No, I said, cool. If you want to, say those things, say that in public, instead of using public privileges so that people can't sue you or companies can't sue you. If you feel strongly about those issues. So that's one of the things that I want to do, in any campaigns in the future, is to actually hold these people to account, especially current MPs or current whatever. I want to see what have you actually done, actually make good changes that actually are good for the communities that we live in.
You touched on doing a bit of social media.
Yeah.
I reckon you should do some social commentary.
Yep.
On social media, like have a 2-minute talk on an issue.
Yep.
Especially in West Auckland, in our community, what you see, and just put it out there on social media. I
mean, I'm thankful that you mentioned it. I mean, that's one of the things. And podcast is something that I had in my mind for a long time. Okay, but I'm not tech savvy. And the fact that I met you, there's a possibility that I can say, Cam, you got a minute to show me certain things, and then take it away.
Sure, I can. Sure.
And that's important. And it's a blessing that you asked me, to come here, because otherwise I would not have known about this. I didn't know how big podcast things are. And again, I'm from another time where talking, or expressing your views is just this. Just not on social media, not TikTok, But sadly, I have to look at that in the future. I understand, but again, I'm a little bit apprehensive because I'm not necessarily one for trending. You know what I mean? I don't like, because for me it's fake. It comes across as fake. Yeah. For me, talking to you, and for you listening to me, that is the only way that I can express the things that I'm telling you. Yeah. So that you can hear, you can see yourself and make those judgments. But in social media or anything like TikTok, it's manipulated. It's changing. Anybody now who wants to voice an opinion through social media, through whatever blogs or whatever, that's an easy way easy way, without no real repercussion, no real commentary by other people who disagree, stuff like that, because they can mute or block or whatever. I want to debate with you, mano a mano, so that we have an understanding. So when I finish, we can walk away saying, thank you very much for your time. I hope to do it again soon.
That's the thing especially with Pacific Island politicians over the years. Like, I feel like being Pacifica, we all have the same goals. It doesn't matter what party you align with. We all have the same goals. We just got different ways of getting there. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's an element of truth in that. I mean, again, the problem with our people is that we're a little bit slow in terms of taking advantages of being in places like New Zealand or being in a place in a Western country. Yeah. Again, a lot of our culture has an influence on those decisions. If when I alluded back to you earlier on, having nieces and nephews who are born here, acknowledge your background, but also remember your Western kids. You're Western kids, so you need to act and to live and to think Western ways, because you can't survive if you constantly try also to relive or to bring back cultural norms. It doesn't work in a place like New Zealand. It doesn't, because Western countries don't care about cultural backgrounds. They don't care about. Palangis see us as as more of those kapahaka groups, tourist, tourism,
entertainment.
Yeah. And that's the problem, So when you're in a country like that, that's why a lot of kids from people from India and Asia, they make the most of it here. But we're still behind in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of nieces and nephews who excel in sport. And one of the advice I give to their parents is, say, listen, you need to have a plan B. You need a plan C. Don't hold your bets on, your child making the All Blacks or Warriors. You don't. We've seen enough of our people fall short. And, and don't try to relive, your failures and putting on your kids because your kid is a good player or whatever. Don't put that pressure. End of the day, have a plan B. Get an education, trade, so you can fall back on. Because in sports, all it takes to ruin a career, broken leg, whatever. Yeah, and sadly, a lot of island parents don't quite understand it. They look at my boy or whatever, making being representing a Warriors or whatever. Yeah, I mean the career of those islanders is very, very short, very, very short. And if you're lucky enough to get 10 years, you're a veteran. Yeah, but most importantly, and this is what I advocate to a lot of young people. If you ever get a chance to be a professional sportsman, make sure that you put your money aside. You invest or whatever you need to do. You don't be a what's his name, a former All Black, is Fikotia, helping 30 members of his family, financing their, what the hell? You don't want to be a Lomu, star or big global star, died poor. You don't want to be a David Tua. He fought bloody boxing, and then what did he get out of that? Bugger all. So you need to be smart with your money. You can't give your money and be controlled by somebody else. You need to actually control your own money. And that's the advice that I give. And we're weak. We don't necessarily do that when we come as because by nature, we're trustworthy. That's by nature, We tend to allow other people to come into our lives and stuff like that. But what Western culture teaches us is to be independent. To make decisions yourselves and not second guess or ask other people to make those decisions for you.
Financial literacy. That's thing in our community, that
Yeah.
that we lack. We're not exposed to
No.
the big deals and how the Palangi's the big business type environment.
Because we haven't really have enough of our people into those high, really testing environments. Lawyers and stuff like that. Stock markets, those sorts of environments that will test the resolve of a person. And again, I bring back religion. Religion has played a part in some of these decisions that some of our people make. They actually impacted, they impacted their lives to more or less, 100%, and everything else is secondary.
Again, it comes to poverty too, because if you look at these these poor suburbs around Auckland,
Yeah.
they're predominantly the people that predominantly there are Pacific Islanders or Māori. There's no banks there. The banks have left these places, and they're being replaced by the instant finances, and there's a whole lot of them over there because. It's because now if you're in the bank, you don't really go into a bank anymore unless it's emergency.
Online,
you online, use your phone. A lot of our people don't use that sort of service, So, and if there's no bank in front at the stores, or there's no banks at the malls for them to go to, then you're gonna go to these instant finance places.
I mean, that's true, yeah. But those things are put there simply because a lot of our people do not want to take that risk to move. Yeah. Have you ever wondered why a lot of people from other countries who escape war, famine, all these atrocities from other countries come to Western countries?
Because of death.
And no, not only that, but come to or immigrate here knowing full well they have no real connection to these foreign countries. But within a short matter of time, Cam, they make it work. Do you understand? They build a life. They buy a house. They buy a business. How many when you see a lot of businesses at the moment in takeaway shops? How many you see Asians there? They speak bugger all English, yeah, because they took a chance. Yeah, they knew that the English may not be there, but they took a chance because they can serve a product that they know that we like. Yeah. But how many of our people would actually take that risk? When you live in a rural area, for instance, Gisborne or whatever, when it's not much work, what do you think would be the next thing that say a family or a father would decide for their family? Yeah, or two choices: either stay there and still have the problems, or find a solution and move to better pastures, and find work, however. Why do you think a lot of immigrants work, 80, 100 hours, Cam? Yeah, they know the value of hard work. But we haven't quite grasped that in New Zealand. Hard work for us mean 40 hours. That's it, 40 hours. But I work 7 days. I work 7 days, and I worked 70, 80, plus hours. That's hard work. But it's because you choose to do it if you want to better yourself. So if you're living in a rural area where there's no work for whatever reason, that's what you need to do is basically migrate to another part of the country, as a lot of migrants do from overseas. That's the example that I try and tell people. I said, if those people can do it, escape, watching their families get killed or whatever, and famine in Africa or whatever, what the hell can't we just move from one district to another to try and get work that way? And the other thing also is that, lack of work. I work multiple jobs, Kim. Yeah? And the thing is, if you work one job that may say 40 hours or whatever, then why can't you pick up another job that maybe, another 20 hours or something like that, to supplement that income? So, and that's the problem we have in a lot of people in New Zealand. They don't. It's that mindset that the government will give me money. Yeah, the government. That's okay. I'll have 10 kids. The government will pay for them. That's the mindset. I have depression. I have some debilitating issues that I have, mental health, whatever. Mental health is now a massive issue in New Zealand. When I was growing up, bugger all. Didn't hear that. Yeah. We just get on, just get on with it. That's it. Yeah. But now, literally, anything that you see, you stress, stress leave. There's a thing is stress leave. You're bullying, or you can have time off, you still get paid. All these things. So this particular generation is certainly being mollycoddled in a sense, than the generation that we came from. Because a lot of generations prior to us, they struggled. But to survive, they went looking for work. They didn't stay out there and suddenly, their life is to join a gang. That's the only option. Rubbish. You always say no. And unfortunately, we have a weak mindset when it comes to those things, because we just have to look at the amount of people in gangs. They are predominantly our people. What does that tell you?
You know what you just said there? If I can relate back to the political spectrum, right? You got the left, you got the right? What you're saying talks to me to what the National Party is all about. And what you're saying about people that don't want to work, want to be on social welfare, is what the Labour Party is all about. And and for me, that sort of experience, I go through that if I think about my younger years, because when you're young, you go to university, you get exposed to the world through theory, no experience. And you think, you think about the rich people and you think they're bad, and then you think about helping the poor people, and then you align with yourself with the left. So you align with yourself with Labour because you have a family or whatever. And then when you get a little bit educated, you start working, you make a little bit of money, then you think about starting a business, and then your thinking changes and you get aligned more to National, because you've passed that threshold of doing something for yourself. You pass that threshold of, okay, I can actually be something. I can work hard and have a goal. I can start my own business and move up in the world. I don't need Labour anymore to help me, because I've passed that. I need National now to help me out with what I'm doing. I mean,
there was an adage once somebody put out some time ago, and said that Labour is good for the community, but National is good for the economy. And that's true. If you look at all the people standing, or if you look at all the mayors in most of our cities, they're all Labour affiliated. If you look at the councils, Labour affiliated.
I think the last National one was John Banks. John Banks was the last.
Fletcher, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Christine.
Yeah.
And that's true. Labour has a tendency of looking after the locals, the community and stuff like that. But National tends to look after the country. So and that's the difference between these sorts of parties, right, left. To be honest, I don't like these terms. I've never really liked these terms, left, right, centre, or whatever. I just want to sort of be seen as somebody who actually wants to do something, that is right. Do what is right, not left, right. Don't care. I mean, if we really wanted to have an impact on our country, imagine when under MMP. Imagine if a Labour decided to approach National and said, "Would you like to be part of a coalition?" Imagine, And the thing is, though, Cam, that was a possibility. MMP does not say that you can't make a contract or have a coalition with the next biggest party. It doesn't. They could have done a coalition together, with National and Labour. Imagine how different our country would be if that was the case. But again, ideology comes into play. It's not about should have been about what's right for the country. It's about what is right for Labour dogma, same as National. That's the problem with politics. It's not about what's right for people.
But how if they were to be one, how would they balance the people that need help versus the people that need to move forward?
By working together. The policies are similar. It's how they put it out there. There's nothing wrong with the likes of left-leaning parties doing what they do. Yeah, because it helps. It's also nothing wrong with how National act their policies, because again it has a positive impact. Yeah, by putting what is good from one side and what's good from the other side, you have a really a great coalition if they really wanted to go down that path. In a perfect world, Cam, that would have been the right thing to do, and they could have and they should have. But no, they had to wait for Winston. It's like wait for Māori Party, wait for Greens. And again, politics is not hard. It should not be hard, but when it comes to ideology, you can't be. It's a big deal. And this is the problem that people can't put their minds to. And sometimes you always wonder what's the point of voting. What is the point of voting? But that's So it's and politics is a game, not only a game, but it's also a business. Government is a business. It's a business. And that's how it should not be run. Not as a business. And Luxon, if it gets in, you run it like a business. So, yeah.
I remember one of my good friends. He's a national voter. He's a Samoan guy, but he said, national, they don't care about us Pacific Islanders. All they care about is moving forward, and whatever you want to do as a family through, like climbing the ladder. That's what they care about. They don't care about your Pacific Islander. When John Key came on board, he did something different. I remember he did something different. He spoke to the Pacific Island business owners when he came up. Like I remember him taking a photo with Vaingatu Kamala and Michael Jones. He had an endorsement of them, and he was just. And I think he even had high MPs on his list, like Alfred.
Ngaro.
Yeah, Alfred Ngaro and Peseta Sam.
Yep.
From South.
Yeah, he was disappointing. I was actually expecting a lot more from him. But again, elevated to a high position. I think it was what was it, police minister? I think at that time.
Yeah, that's right. But that was the first time I saw National do something, like say something to Pacifica. They actually put a couple of guys up there.
Yeah, but the question you have to ask though, Cam, did they put them there because of merit?
Right.
Or did they put them there because of tokenism?
Or want to take a piece of the pie of the of Labour fortress?
It's no different. It's no different than saying when you bring back Michael Jones and Tukumana. Any of these people want to be seen with anybody that's in the media. Yeah, because it helps their cause, helps their profile. That's the easy part of politics. Easy part. I know Vainga. I grew up with him, and sad that he died. I met Michael Jones many years ago, when I invited him to speak. I was a youth leader back then at church. So I brought him to speak back then many, many years ago. But did they influence me? No. I mean, I listened to Michael Jones speak. Again, it comes down to what you listen to and what you see. I mean, again, wonderful athlete. But again, when I hear people speak who's supposed to be me, it doesn't really resonate. I know Inga, and I grew up with him. And he was a jokester, a really funny guy. But, and we didn't really sort of had any other things in common other than playing together in rugby, and going to schools with his brothers and stuff like that. We were different. We were really different, But that doesn't mean that I will use him as something to elevate my profile. I could have. I would have used a lot of it. David Tua and all these people by calling them, can you come and, blah, blah, blah. No. For me, I want to do it on my own sweat, my own merit. And that's a disappointing factor when you see some of these polys that are elevated to these positions in whatever parties that they are in, is that, again, they did not really excel. I was disappointed they did not excel. I mean, contrast their Pisita to, say, Collins, Judith, in your face, arrogant and stuff like that. Pisita, quiet, not, It's no different to, the former Labour Minister, Poto Williams, again, did not get out there, become, obnoxious. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that a lot of our people lack. It's the in-your-face mentality. Speaking, being humble, and all these things do not necessarily suit people who are into politics, because it's a graveyard for a lot of people who think they want to change the world and stuff like that. It's another phrase where I have an issue with. I want to make a difference. You ask a lot of people who want to enter these sort of environments, Cam. I want to make a difference. I'm surprised you haven't asked me that, to be honest. I don't want to make a difference. I want to actually see how things work. I want to see whether I can help implementing things that help people in our community and immigrants, and especially immigrants, navigate the issues that I faced, so that they don't have to face in the future. So, that's why I'm passionate about what I want to do.
Because you might be one of the outliers. Because when you talk about Sam being a quiet guy, but that's generally our people. Our people generally, we're loud on the rugby field, but in public we're like humble, quiet, and we're not really out there.
That's our upbringing.
Our upbringing, comes from that.
Yep.
Hey, and when they talk about how they have the stats for lower wages, like Pacifica has lower wages than the Barangis on the same job, sort of thing. But when you hear psychologists talk about, it's the type of person you are. If you're a person, because there's a name for it, if you're that quiet person, doesn't like confrontation, if you're that type of personality, then you're not going to fight for the higher wages. You're going to be taken advantage of. And these are general people. There's a lot of people like that, and there's a name for it. Opposed to the other side of, there's the person that's loud and always stands up for himself and talks, and there's that kind of person.
But there's also a hidden meaning there. I mean, there are people that are confident. Don't confuse confidence with arrogance. Yeah, I mean, there are people that can speak and loud and stuff like that, but there are hidden issues with those people who may have been bullied or whatever. Yeah, so they have to come out as tough. So they don't want to be seen or taken advantage of.
Yeah, exactly. So the psychologists say there's these two types of people, and they can be. And I think for the people that the argument was, they're saying that it's not a race thing, it's the type of person you are thing. And if more Pacific people are that type of person, they were quiet, then of course they're gonna get low pay, as opposed to the person, because there are Pacific Islanders that get high pay, because they're the loud ones. They're the ones that are strong and stand up for themselves and don't want to take advantage of. It's not the color of your skin, it's the type of personality you have.
I mean, there are studies that have said that we are heavily represented in racism throughout a lot of sectors. Whatever, health, crime, education. There are studies, and that goes with Māori as well as anything. How affects Māori affects sadly it affects us. And I always wondered why haven't we not learned? Why have we not learned? All of the decades that our people have been here, why we have not learned? It always frustrates me when I see people in these. In these manual laboring work. I worked in an industry where currently now there's some 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, island boys, And I talked to some of them 2-3 weeks ago, and I asked them, why are you here? Why are you here? And for whatever reason, they give me, family needs financial, whatever, so we're told by our parents to come and work. And the sad part is that it's the same how I went through, when I grew up, because I worked when I was 13 after schools, And it brought those memories and say, my gosh, I don't want to see the young generation now do things that I did, 40 years ago or whatever, and still not achieve certain things. If you're born now, there's no reason why you can't attain more things than what our parents and what we did. No reason, yeah. But you're held back by culture and culture norms to say, you need to be humble, you need to be quiet. We're a quiet race. We are. The old saying,
respect your elders.
Yeah, the old saying. What's that old saying? A child is seen rather than heard. Yeah, and that is exactly how a lot of Pacific Island kids are taught.
I'm in the construction industry, and I did a site safe course, right? And one of the topics on the site safe course was communication to the foreman and his workers. And one of the things that came up was the Pacific Island workers, and there was a problem with communication with them because there's a culture they wanted to change in terms of site safety where you have to say something if you see something wrong on site. If there's something gonna endanger someone, you gotta say something. And the problem was that the Pacific Island kids weren't communicating anything because the guy that was doing teaching the course, he was a Parangi guy. He was saying because they saw me as the boss, they saw the white guy as the boss, so you can't approach him and talk to him like, hey, there's a thing, you gotta handle this, you gotta take care of this, because it's a respect thing, like the elders, sort of thing. So, and no one realized that why they weren't talking. So there was a thing in Site Safe where they had to respect the culture, learn the culture, so you know how to communicate with the island boys, sort of thing. But that was I think that was a result of that kind of personality. Like the quiet, humble personality.
Yep.
Like don't speak up. Don't speak to your elders like that.
Yep.
Or don't speak to your boss like that, or something like that. Yeah.
No,
it's interesting.
Listen, I agree. I mean, but have you ever wondered how to achieve the gains in any industry? When you go back to saying how a foreman can talk or to explain island workers certain health and safety, whatever. The problem with our people is the language barrier, and that's the first thing. Especially those who come from overseas, the language barrier. The other problem is that we're not used to the compliance, the bureaucracy, all these other things that go with working in the industry. You set rules and laws. A lot of islands may not necessarily understand. May not necessarily understand, and that's the biggest problem with industries that have a lot of brown faces working in there. They're not going to understand all these legal jargon or all these health and safety protocols and all that. They're not. But if you explain it in a way to say, this is bad, that's good. You know what I mean? Simplify certain things that they understand. You do this, you get hurt. If you do this, you'll be fine. And that's how it is. So you're never going to get a good outcomes from people who think you need to invest whatever in these island workers because for whatever reason. Simplify things and you get a better outcome that way.
With you running for Henderson Massey, like what's your biggest things you're going to bring into your campaign? Crime. Like you're going to have your campaign now. So was crime your number one priority? And so what have you seen out west that made you make that your priority?
Have you heard the helicopters lately?
Oh, mate. These helicopters ruin this podcast sometimes because I can't get the sound out.
The problem is, though, Cam, I lived since 16 years in Te Aratu Peninsula and almost 10 years in Te Aratu South, yeah? So I lived out this way. In the last bloody 2 years, you're hearing the helicopter now prominently. Nearly
at least once a week or more than once a week.
Well, that's the problem. Never heard that before. Why? I guess I guess the criminals have decided it's easier for them to come from out South Auckland or whatever, out west, and that's the thing. But crime is a big factor. Ram raids you see now, businesses, ram raids up in St. Luke's the other day, random, just
Broad daylight.
yeah, broad daylight, because we allowed that. We've allowed that. All our laws governing justice and whatever are geared for to try and help people not get in that. And that's the problem. There's no real laws that saying, you do something bad, we're going to jail you. Everything is about rehabilitation or to try and teach young offenders so that they don't become adult criminals. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. But
you saw that with that kid that got sentenced for rape.
Yep.
He got home D.
Kailangi kid.
Yeah, home detention and rehabilitation was the thing. But he ruined 4 girls' lives. Like he raped 4 girls. It was like
again, the judges. I mean, I didn't read what the judge because it's probably redacted. But I think the judge would look at his age and say, a conviction will ruin his career. Any conviction will impact you, any future employment
because he's young
or travel. And
that's him as a young offender.
Yeah, the problem is though, how do you weigh that from? He assaulted 4 or 5 people. How did you not learn from the first one? Do you understand? When it becomes multiple people, then that's a problem. And then having, thinking about his welfare being, well, what about the welfare of the girls? And the problem with our justice system is that it's geared to try and help youth crime to try and not become a bigger problem, issues with these people. It's not necessarily, imprisoning an individual. You're looking at Labour now, literally not sending people to jail for so-called minor crimes, because they want less prisoners. And listen, in a perfect world, that's cool, But ultimately, there has to be some sort of consequence for people's actions, especially multiple offenders. If you have not learned after 3 times, are you going to learn?
Are you going to learn? And, before these ram raids happening, or with the kids, I mean, that's a loophole because there's no consequences for these kids that do these ram raids. So, so it's an incentive for them to, or the older kids to get these young kids.
They know the rules, man. They know the laws, and the cops can't do nothing. See, the real heroes here are the cops. The cops, can fine them and can charge or whatever, but ultimately it's the judges. Ultimately, it's the laws that are against them. They can't do anything other than give them to youth sector or whatever, home detention or whatever. They can't do anything because that's how the law works in New Zealand. So, and a lot of the youth criminals know that. They know. They know that if they steal a car and you're 12 years old, they know that the cops can't do anything, Nothing.
So crime out west, what will your policies be around crime out west?
Well, certainly, the fact that the government promised about $6 million to help local businesses, initiate certain security measures. And yet, 5 businesses only? In the last 3 months, what does it tell you? What priority is that? Does it take someone to get killed or a dairy owner to get killed for council or government to actually act? I don't understand. But then I thought about it, and I do understand because it's not a priority. It's not a priority. Again, nobody's died, nobody's got killed. Well, it was only a matter of time. Matter of time. I mean, what's to stop any dairy owner arming themselves with a baseball bat or anything like that? A lot of these people live in these premises. I'm a believer, Cam, and you may or may not agree with this. I'm a believer. If I'm at home, if I'm at home, living a relative at home, and somebody decides to break into my house, the last thing that I will think about is their rights. It's their rights. That's the last thing. The second thing that I will be thinking about is how much force I would use to stop or subdue this particular person. I won't be thinking that.
Well, it's your safety and the lives of your family.
Absolutely. I don't give a damn. Priority. I won't be giving a damn about what laws say, you got to use minimal force. bugger you. It's the same as anybody if I catch anybody breaking into my car. I work hard for the minimal things that I have. Why should somebody suddenly think that it's right to take somebody else's hard work simply because they're too lazy, too stupid, or whatever? Yeah, that's how I believe.
That's a natural thing. And if someone broke into Jacinda Ardern's house and baby, what's her name? Hope?
Nivi.
Oh, Hope. Neve's in there.
And Clark Gifford.
And Clark's in there.
Yep.
Is she going to do the same thing?
I would think so. But I doubt it because she would have had police outside, I think, normally anyway, and I doubt that would happen. But no, you're right. I mean, and you think common sense would say that. But if you've seen the consequences of some of these people who fought back, home invasions, they've been prosecuted. They've been prosecuted. A van in Te Ratu, I think it was last year, a worker, a van, was broken into by somebody trying to steal somebody's tools, whatever. The owner caught them, beat them up, but he was convicted. He was charged. And again, in a perfect world, yeah, I won't hold back. You invade my space and terrorize whatever, and some people that I care about are here, your rights are gone. If you murder somebody or rape somebody, your rights are gone. And that's how I look at it in terms of crime. Gangs, classic issues. What's the point of any of these crews? Why? Why are they thriving? It's because we have allowed that to thrive. Yeah? We have allowed that to thrive.
Let's just say that they passed that law. You're allowed to do whatever you have to do if someone breaks into your house.
Yep.
The incentive is that people that want to break into the house have that risk now. It's not the cops showing up after a certain time. It's the person in the house.
I mean, burglaries and break-ins such as things like that are down in police's priority, and that's a fact. Sadly, police now, they have a priority list, a tick list of what's more important.
Right.
And that's a sad part about policing in New Zealand. They will deny that, they will, but they don't have the numbers. I
thought car theft was at the top of that.
You would think so, but I mean, you talk.
No, I mean car theft is like the number one. Because your car gets stolen, you tell the police, no one's gonna find the car. Yep. You're gonna get your car back. Your car is either gonna be halfway in the shop or with all the wheels gone.
But would they turn up?
Park somewhere.
Would they turn up not long after you file a report? 2 days later, sorry, we're busy. Not a priority.
Yeah. Not a priority.
And that's a sad part of how justice system works in places like New Zealand. Thank goodness we're not like America where we have guns. Imagine that where homeowners have legally owned guns. Imagine that. How different the landscape would be. How different would some of these criminals have the guts to actually do something like that?
You know what will make sense? What won't make sense? We're allowed guns, but we're not allowed to smack.
It's funny today. It is funny. I mean, the other thing is also that you may not agree with me. I'm an advocate for death penalty. I'm an advocate. The Christchurch shooter, classic example. Why is he alive? Ask yourself, why is he alive? No, you and I are paying for him to live. He can live his 80s. Why is he alive? No, what value of him being alive? Nothing. No value. No. And why are some of these criminals have been there 30 plus years? And every parole interview that they have, he's still a risk to society. Well, what's the point? What's the point?
If there was a death penalty,
Yep.
I'll agree with you, but it has to be that situation where there's absolutely no way he didn't do it.
I understand that. I mean,
there's a video, it went viral.
Yep, you probably didn't already know, but we did have that death penalty. We did. And I think the last person who was executed was a woman in the 60s, I think. I can't remember. But we did. And again, it's a conversation that possibly it saddens me when I hear a lot of these women. I mean, I have names of women in my head that have been killed, murdered, by users, by losers who do nothing other than, wanting to rob, rape or whatever. Yeah? Yet they get a chance to live. No? 17 years is the minimum. starting minimum for life sentence, okay? 17 years, And anything extra, that is up to the parole board if they think that person has done enough to get parole. 17 years is a starting point. In America, for instance, they can convict a 10-year-old for life if they murder, whatever, 10-year-old. Yeah, think about that. Yeah? So, I mean, it's like I said, I'm a believer that a person takes their life in their own hands. They do, their future is in their hands. Simple as that. But we have rules in the country. If you don't follow them or you don't abide by them, there are consequences. Yeah. And when you constantly allow repetitive offenders to go slap in the wrist or whatever, what's the point? What is the point?
So would you implement a more conservative crime policy here in West Auckland?
Not conservative. Conservative, no. I mean, ultimately, if the government wanted to fund all these or help all these dairies or what is it, then yeah, implement that. If it means increasing security guards, then so be it. Or the government don't see businesses as valued, or these sorts of break-ins as valued or top priority. They don't. The only reason why it's become, in the news is simply because it's been in the news, and the government has to be seen to be doing something, and that's a problem. But you watch next year's general election. It'll be fascinating to see how much the government will offer money that few months earlier they said they had nothing. Where does this money come from? They will offer amount of lolly scrambles for a range of things. You see, and see what whether people will change their minds or whatever. And that's a sad thing about government as well. We have a 3-year term, but the first year after the election is a feeling out period. The middle year is more trying to implement certain things, but the third year is actually putting out more lolly scramble, to try and get re-elected. It's just a game. It's a game.
What would you do about the helicopter? What would you do about that?
You only got one helicopter.
Yeah, would you tell it not to fly around after 9 o'clock?
No, I can't. I mean, I read also, the problem is though, I mean, we've seen now, especially wealthy people, say up in Greyland, possibly, a classic example, Ali Williams, married to that girl who does that, the balloon, toys or whatever,
Yeah. And their family, they make all those balloons all at once. They got rich out of that.
Yeah, exactly. So he's married to that. So he's in the money. But they also now are putting in a consent form to be able to fly their helicopter, and a lot of other, the owner of what's it called, Briscoe, same, they want to consent to fly more than 2 or 3 times, They only take but that's entitled, that's entitled. I kind of feel sorry for those people living in the environments, the area where all these helicopters come in and out, but I guess if we got money, you throw around, but that's the problem also, with councils. If I was in council, I'd say, no, you drive your car like everybody else. You wait in the bloody traffic like everybody else. You're nothing special. Why are you special? Mm-hmm. That's what I would do if I was in council. So
crime, what will your next one be?
Right now, the other one will be the alcohol licensing in out west. I think it's an underlying issue that it's been around for a long, long time. I mean, I don't drink as much. I drink a little bit, but I'm a believer in fair competition. And I'm a believer that people should have choices. When you're not given choices, then that's undemocratic, and that's just wrong. So that's my other issue that I'll be, putting out there if anybody wants to ask. But it's but I got a lot of other issues that are but it's all semantics. I mean, it's all similar issues to what other people are also campaigning against. Climate change, classic example, but also strengthening of the buildings that we have at the moment. You know, we live in an earthquake-prone country, and when the government or local councils, or has set a guidelines to ask these owners of these buildings, especially heritage buildings, to strengthen them for any future earthquakes. It's a slow push. Wellington, classic example. It's too late if a massive earthquake happens in those places. Well, what's the point? Too late. But again, we're slow in doing it. We only do it after the fact. Oh, well, maybe we should, start strengthening these things after there's no building. And then, again, it's money. It's all about money. Politics is all about money. Oh, we can't afford this. Where are we going to get the money? Borrow the money if you need to. Yeah? It's that simple. If you want to survive or to have these infrastructure or whatever, find the money. It doesn't matter.
In regards to housing and out west and in the unitary plan, like I know there's incentive to get more houses in there, more infill houses. So there's a lot of houses, especially in Ranui, where the owners have sold their property and left. The new owners have built 3 townhouses on the same property. And if you're a street like Starting Place or Bahari Drive, where the streets are narrow, what's going to happen is that all the extra cars will be parked along the street.
Another contentious issue, I mean, I was a little bit. I had a chuckle when is it Auckland Transit or Kotahi? Can't remember who's in charge, but one of those CCOs, council CCOs, decided to wait until after the current election before they make a decision because they're unsure whether there'll be new councillors that may change their minds. Currently, I think is half and half. I believe. But if there's a new council and new members decide not to go with it, it may not be. The problem I had with those law, it was supposedly catered for the businesses or the CBD, the housing or whatever, CBD. And that's logical. I understand that. The problem is that there's no guarantee that particular law will come into residence.
Because the problem is these streets are filled with cars now, and how you going to get a fire truck through there when there's an emergency without damaging the cars along the way? Even when you're driving home, or if you live in these streets, you're driving slow because the 2 cars, you can't even,
I mean, it's
tight.
It's an issue, not just that particular issue, but it's also it has a range of issues. I mean, the fact that even if there's a fire, you see the houses all close to each other. It's one fire, one house, like a matchstick. In terms of parking, the whole initiative of reduced parking is so that the government wants us to start looking at
riding the bike.
Yep, walking, EV, electric vehicles. That's the agenda right now.
But see, Auckland's made up of satellite towns, like all over the place. No one works. Hardly anyone. Everyone has to travel to work. So I can't see anyone riding a bike to work.
But they want to be. They want to try and change that narrative and try and be like other countries, like Nordic countries. You know what I mean? Where a lot of people walk or have these electric vehicles and stuff like that. Yeah.
They talk about Holland, and Holland is a place where there's a lot of bike riding. But Holland's flat. Like the topography in Auckland, there's a reason why there's like hundreds of volcanoes here in Auckland. There's a lot of hills.
It's this agenda that especially the Greens are actually pushing it. It's the Greens that are pushing it, not so much Labour. And sadly, because of MMP, Labour has to sort of also give them a little bit of crumbs when it comes to policy.
And that's what I mean about MMP. What happens with MMP now? You get these little parties coming in, influencing a little bit. Like I think the smacking law came from the Green Party.
Bradford was it? She was a Green MP.
Yeah, I think they came from her. Yep. So that was a big deal.
It was.
But the thing with MMP, like what I notice now, it takes a long time for things to happen now, because there's a lot of.
It does. It's a constant negotiation. I mean, Winston Peters is a classic example. Will he not? That's how he plays the game. And it works for him, so he won't say that he's for whatever. He's not going to put out, who's he backing until the last minute. That's how the game is played, and we're suckers. We have to wait as voters, we're suckers. But we keep voting for these people simply because, we think that a lot of their policies we agree with and some of them we don't, but their policies are aligned to what we believe in rather than others. But we forget what other policies from other parties that could be possibly good for us or beneficial for us. But yeah, we vote because status quo.
Going back to the licensing trust, have you talked to Nick Smell and the ward tag people? Because they're against that.
It's nice that you actually mentioned it. I met him a couple of times when he was signing signatures up in Lincoln, back in outside. I, funnily enough, have not informed him of my standing and of my support. The reason why is that, again, I didn't want to be seen to be aligned with this particular group. Even though I believe in what they believe in, I still do not want to be connected with that group. I will only, let him know if I'm lucky enough to get into these positions and say to him, yep, I will fight for your cause because your cause is my cause, And that's why I didn't put my name forward for that particular group when they put out, for candidates. So I thought about it, but no.
Yeah, the thing I don't like the trust is like, it's the whole competition thing, right? And the whole monopoly on alcohol. And I don't understand because they push the narrative of alcohol is bad. We're going to be like alcoholic society out west. There's going to be drunk people on the streets. There's going to be crime. But why are you saying that to West Auckland when North Shore's got alcohol? Everywhere else around Auckland sells alcohol in supermarkets.
I mean, that's a question that you probably need to ask all these people who made these laws.
There's a profit thing.
Yeah.
They use that narrative, but rarely deep down, it's a profit thing.
But the thing with the trust is that's supposedly a charity. It's a charity.
But the money they give is the money from the pokies. So how's that? It's funny because it was John Tamahere that when you used to be on Radio Live, him and Jackson.
Yep.
They were on Radio Live. I love their show. I listen to it all the time at work because I love their views and that. He was the first guy that spoke about the trust, what he didn't like about it. And that's the first time I actually knew something about it. Because he said that, it's, he thought that the gambling was a big problem with Māori and Pacific Islanders.
Yep.
And he needs to get rid of it. He said that the Sky Tower was a hypodermic needle that needs to be taken out and thrown away somewhere else.
Yep.
And he talked about the trust being the guys that use the gambling money to pay off. And he called it a bribe. He called all the money they give the charity, he called it a bribe. And that money comes from the pokies. And that sort of put something in my head. And, oh man, what's going on here? And then when I looked deep into it, yeah, that's right. They own all the alcohol stores in West Auckland. Yep. They stop alcohol being sold in supermarkets, and they control all the bars and they control all the bars around here, around
what to sell.
Yeah,
and taverns. Yep.
And taverns, what to sell. And if you were going to come into West Auckland to open a restaurant, then you have to ask them first. You got to get a permit.
You pay them.
You pay them to get a permit. So they're pretty much in control of everything like that. And what West Auckland misses out, is entertainment. Entertainment on a level that you see out in Central or in South Auckland or even North Shore. And when I mean entertainment, I mean a place where entrepreneurs can come and open a bar and have it nice, have it really catered for the community in a way that Central does. Like if you go to these entertainment precincts, like in Morningside, and have you been to Morningside? Those new
Kingsley, yep.
those places, they're real vibrant places. People go have a drink, and there's none of that out west. I mean, we got Hangar Bar, but really, you want to go there?
Expensive.
It's expensive, but do you really, really want to go there?
Been there a few times.
Yeah, exactly. But that's because they don't have any competition.
RSA is the closest where I go. I mean, I'm an old guy, so by 12 o'clock I'm tired, go home.
Yeah.
I don't do the hard 8 hours,
No.
like I used to, 20, 30 years ago, Cam. But in terms of your question, that's a question that we really need to ask the lawmakers who made this law. And the other question is also, I always thought that even laws you make, laws are not set in concrete. They're not set in concrete. Like a classic look at after the massacre in Christchurch. How quickly they changed the gun laws. How quickly, just like that, within a matter of short time.
But they didn't take the guns from the people that using them
It
responsibly.
was never going to work. I mean, gangs are not honest. There was never, but it was a publicity stunt in the sense that it want to make the government look good that they're doing something. And bless their cotton socks.
And it worked because America loved us for that. She came on those American talk shows and they went, man, I can't believe you took away guns in your country because we just had some more high school killings, stuff like that. And they adored us for that. But you're right. The only guns they took away are the responsible people with the guns, not the gangs.
Oh, gangs are, we're going to, we're going to give you guns, buy back, you give some money. It was never going to work. But going back to what you said about the laws and of the trust, I don't understand how such laws are still law. Yeah, I don't understand that. This referendum we've had, I don't even understand the point of referendums when it comes to the trust. Every 10, 15 years? What the hell is that all about? I mean, the councils or whoever implemented these laws can reverse it. And that's why I wanted to find out if I was ever lucky to get into council. Why is it still there? When politicians can change laws. I don't understand. And I need to understand that so that I can tell the community this is the reason. But even then, it should never. There's no reason or rationale to have a law that is uncompetitive. It's uncompetitive. And, especially in an environment where they talk about the duopoly of supermarkets and oil companies and so forth. Yeah. Well, what's the, you talk about this here, but yet we have a problem that we have now. Yeah. I don't understand that. And the fear of the trust is that, they're putting out there, if we allow competition, that means they want us, they want to kick us out. No, we don't want to kick the trust out. We just want more, competitors to come in the market so that people have choice. And that's the word here. It's about choice. It's about choice. And right now, people don't have choice.
We don't have a choice. We have a shitty bar named Hanger and other shitty bars around.
Rubbish. I've been to
rubbish bars.
I've been to a lot of these taverns in the last few years because, as I said, karaoke is my buzz. And I find them rubbish. Horrible places. Dark, it's horrible. I only go for singing, that's it. It's just fascinating. I mean, Costco, for instance. Costco would have been pissed off, the fact that they can't sell alcohol. But yet they are, the second leading wine seller, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yet they would have been pissed off. Imagine that. Imagine, the lost profits that not only Costco would make, but also the potential taxes that or rates or whatever that a local community would get, or the government in Texas, and stuff like that. Imagine that, all because one particular
law.
Exactly, and that's the thing that pisses me off. Why is this law still there when these? When we elect these people, and I mean elect these people to do what is right, that is the problem. And I applaud the likes of Ismail with doing what he is, and I applaud him. And he's fighting against a brick wall, and I say, you keep going, to try and change the minds of people. And I hate that when people say, if we open up the alcohol licensing laws, we're going to have a booze shop around every corner, But I feel like saying, well, you said that about dairies, You said that about petrol stations. You said about supermarkets.
But then they don't have, you don't have any faith in the community. I mean, if you're scared of what you're gonna have more alcohol stores now whole West Auckland's going to be alcoholics.
But that's the thing. Don't even give a referendum to people. I mean, it's part and parcel. Referendums are sometimes where people will vote for what they think in their hearts. But it's not necessarily what is good for the community. Yeah. At the end of the day, this is a business, an option for other people who may be rushing from home, from work, going to the supermarket, not only buy whatever is necessary, but also buy a bottle of wine. Yeah. Rather than trying to, supermarket and trying to find another outlet to buy their bottle of wine.
But it's easy to manipulate referendum. Because once a referendum's out there, all you need to do is feed the social media, feed the media, feed whatever campaign you got to push for one way, and make sure everybody hears it. I
mean, the fact that the trust have constantly said, they put out so much money, the community and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is they don't put enough. Mm. They make a lot more than what they put out. Very small amount of what they put. Nick's Ismail has a good idea of what the trust has actually given out to the community. But we also need to remember the trust is a business. It's that simple. It's a business. It invests a lot of these money that they make through whatever pokies or whatever to other investments. They own other buildings. You know what I mean? So they have a reason for them to be there, so that I can accrue all this wealth for only a small minority of people that are in that particular group.
Well, there's an amount of propaganda going on because, I like to see the stats and all of this and the numbers to say that, okay, we take away your monopoly, you still got enough money, you're still gonna have enough money to pay to give to charity. Then what's the point of your monopoly if you still got that? Still paying that amount of money to charity.
Exactly. You give to charity because you want to, because it's the right thing. You don't give to charity because you're trying to be seen as look at us.
Yeah, if we lose the monopoly, you won't get the money.
I mean, the fact is, any opposition that alternative businesses who enter that market will also do the same. It's just common. It's good business practice. They'll do the same. They'll put a little money here, there, to help local causes or whatever. It's a no-brainer when it comes to these things. They will do the same.
Yeah, because that's capitalism.
Exactly.
And when we talked about before about colonization, capitalism, and Western world, those things come hand in hand, like you said. I think that if you align to that, you get a better understanding of how the world works. I think. Yeah. Especially in New Zealand, and when you complicate it by bringing in political correctness, diversity, decolonization. That's the thing going on right now.
Yep.
If you bring in those things, you're just complicating what makes you push forward.
Yep.
Right. And I know with us Pacificers, we got our culture to try and maneuver the culture through this thing, through these three things that go hand in hand. It can be done, right?
I mean, I love my background. I love my history. I love my my culture. Yeah, but I also, in recent times, I'm also sort of realizing that we're becoming more of a advert. You know what I mean? A sort of marketing experience. You take a look at the Māori kapahaka groups and all that, yeah? The fact that now their culture is literally out there, used by many, many businesses. You look at a lot of these kapahaka groups or whatever island groups that perform in a lot of places, yeah? They're there so that, look at the tourists, look at, native, take a photo, yeah? And that's what I'm seeing now. And I was thinking, I don't want to see my culture as some sort of, on a postcard. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And that's the thing that I'm looking at from the inside out. All these Palangis that are sort of using our histories to increase their wealth for whatever reason. Yet there's nothing really that we get out of it. Nothing. Mm. And that's sometimes that saddens me when I see that. You know, I used to be involved in Samoan groups and culture groups years ago when I was growing up in Carson Boys. I attended, you know, and I valued that experience. Not so much now, but I see also the likes of our nieces and nephews also involved in these sorts of cultural festivities, you know. And I also sometimes wonder, I mean, what are we actually doing it for? Are we doing it for to continue our way of life, our way that we know it, and to maintain our culture in that way? Or are we doing it to appease these other people?
When you think of Hawaii and what the Americans did to them, like they only care about the hulu dancing. You know, they were, if anything part of the culture they don't like, they will, nah, don't do that. But we'll do some more dancing. We like the dancing. Can you do more of the dancing?
The haka is a classic example when our sports teams do it. You know, all these other foreigners are ooh and ah. You know, they see these sorts of, you know, sort of warrior type sounds and, you know, native people and thinking that we are like that. We are crazies who do these sorts of things. You know what I mean? That's the problem that I see sometimes, that we've overused some of our cultural phenomena to try and appease some of these other people who have no idea. No idea. You know?
And if we fail to see that, then that is true racism.
Yeah.
And I think that too with what the government gives our people in terms of like they have the Pacifica Awards or the Pacifica Business Awards or Pacifica Music Awards or Pacifica funding, that kind of thing. Like it puts us in a corner to compete with ourselves.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I don't understand that too. I mean, well, what's the point? If you want to enter any sort of field, you want to actually compete against anybody else in that
world,
field.
the rest of the world.
You understand? I don't want to. You don't want to be put in a category, you know, to compete against your own kind. Oh, what's the bloody point? Yeah, I don't understand that. But again, that's the issue that a lot of these people who are in these sorts of environments, they need to speak up. They need to speak up or not take part. What's the point? You know? Again, it just weakens our resolve in trying to move forward and try and to attain you know, the goals that we as people want to do. You know, and it's still, but it's subtle. It's a subtle way of doing it, and they want to make it so that we to be seen that we're still involved, we're still in the game. You understand? But yet we had no clue that they're laughing at us. Or you know, you can't go any higher than Pacifica Award. And that's a sad part. Yeah. So if I was any of them, I won't take part. Yeah. You know, let me know when I'm in the top New Zealand Award, not bloody Māori or not bloody whatever.
No, I think that too, and it's not being mean or anything. It's just like how I feel. Like that's why I see it, and you know how you say if they're laughing at us, that's how I think of it too.
Yeah, exactly, man.
I think, oh yeah,
exactly. But we haven't evolved enough to understand.
And we can compete with the best of them.
That's what I'm saying.
But they're putting us down to compete with ourselves, or giving us a ceiling.
But we've allowed that. We've allowed to be trampled like that, and that's part of the problem with a lot of people. We've allowed, yes sir, 3 bags full, sir. Because
it's a government funding.
Yep.
And there's a lot of Pacifica government funding out there.
Yep.
And we're quick to take that money.
We've allowed that too. We've allowed that to creep into our you know, our psyche and says, you know, we can't go forward or achieve this without some sort of help. Yeah, but I'm always a believer that if you're really passionate about something, help is fine, but don't continue, you know, living off it simply because you can't do anything better to attain or go higher without that particular help. Because even with that help, there will always be, you know, as I said to you earlier on, nobody's going to give you money free without something repaid back. Nobody.
Even if they were paid back as making them look good.
Yep.
I mean, that's enough for them to, because that's free money to them to give out. As long as you make me look good. Yep. The thing that I thought that came up for me, that something dodgy was going on or something weird was going on, was a guy named Mikau Mulipola. Now he's a comic book artist. He's someone guy out. He lives out. He's from Mangele.
Okay.
He writes comic books. He draws comic books. He's an artist, but he's also a wrestler. He wrestles too. he went for some funding to take his art to because he got a job right now. He's got a job with Disney as a animator, so he's doing that right now. But a couple of years ago, he came on this podcast and he talked about how he went for funding to go to a art convention to Comic-Con to do his art because he does that. He got rejected for the fact that he wasn't doing Pacifica art. He was doing superheroes, but he's a Samoan, so he couldn't understand that. He didn't understand it. So he had the idea of, I'm going to apply for it the year after. I want to take a group of Samoan kids with me and teach them how to draw. And there's some conventions I want to take them to so they can learn how to do art, and he's training them up. And you apply for that because he's a Pacifica person with Pacifica kids, helping them pursue their dream of being a comic book artist. Again, rejected because they weren't doing the art they wanted him to do.
They weren't doing the art. Yeah, exactly.
But they were Pacifica kids.
But the problem with that example is a classic example of allowing these other people outside of your own, influence, allowing them to dictate the terms of what you wanted. It's a blessing that somebody like that can draw, can illustrate, yeah. And can go further with Disney or whatever, yeah? But the fact that somebody says, oh, well, we want you to do something that your background. A fella said, if I was a comic drawer or superhero drawer, I would draw superheroes. If it means that they are not have a Pacifica face, so be it. But it's almost like it's belittling. Mm. It's almost like you're limited to draw some small island in the Pacific, of savages or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with a lot of these people that see us in that way, that we are limited. We are limited, and we've already been put in a box. It's always tough when you're always being put in a box. It's no different in any industry that you go. They're already being prejudged. Any application for anything. Already prejudged, not given a chance to explain your situation. Already prejudged, and so it's tough. But I mean, it's a constant fight. It is a constant fight. It doesn't help when others who should be fighting for your cause, give up. It doesn't help. The more people that fight for certain causes that influence our lives, the more that we have a better life span or better outcomes in the future, especially kids, your kids. Did I tell you the reasons why I don't have kids?
You don't have kids?
I don't have kids. Expensive. How many islanders can tell you that they don't have kids? Yeah? We don't think about expenses when having kids, Cam. We don't, because it's the last thing we do. We do it because culturally that's what happens. Multiple kids, yeah. But I, for the last few years, a few years ago, decided no. Simply because of expense. I wasn't in a financial position to afford kids. It's that simple. And if you want to live a quality life, why the hell would you want to put more obstacles to make it harder for you to have a decent life when you retire? Yeah? I got enough nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
That's enough for them to pass on the family name. Why would you want to add, any one of mine?
That's a good decision if you're gonna go down that way, especially financially. Another way, I was talking to a guy at work. He's gay. He's got a partner, and that's another couple that will be secure financially. If you think about two gay people living together, no kids, two men, high pay jobs. I mean, that's financially secure for there's no reason why.
Have you ever wondered why New Zealand wants to increase the population of New Zealand?
For the economy?
No.
Is it?
Yeah, that's partly. But secondly, we do not have enough new births in this country.
Really?
Soon, you're going to have a generation of people that will retire soon, in a matter of few years. When that happens, you do not have enough younger people to come up.
Pay the tax.
Yeah. Absolutely.
for their pensions.
Absolutely. And having said that about having kids, there's now, a lot of people now are thinking on not having kids. Or if they are having kids, maximum one, maximum two. Yeah. So that's the problem that a lot of these countries are looking at. In China, a classic example, one child policy before for many, many years. But they had a problem when they found out that there was too many boys. There's more males than females. Yeah. So that's the reason why a lot of this government or any future government wants to increase immigration. It's not only because of tax, but also because of people helping look after the oldies. This generation, boomer generation, so forth.
That China one child law was an interesting one because that's a pure example of how a law can be to help one problem but causes some other problems. Because it was sad how a lot of because families were now one child, but they wanted a boy to keep the name across. If they're the girl, man, they would dump the baby somewhere, and abort it, like heaps of. That's why there's heaps of males.
But it's no different to a lot of other countries. In Southern Africa, in Middle East, it's no different. Because I see males as far more worthier than females. And again, that's hard to change because it's a generational, it's religious. You can't change that.
I think we're struggling now with the pension age because the baby boomers are retirement age.
I mean, I'm a believer in. I'm a believer in what do you call them in basic income. The notion that everybody gets a basic a government basic income.
Like universal basic income.
Universal income. That's what it's been talked about for a period of time. Because I believe that's a good way of helping people. To get off or to help them, financially in whatever issues that they have. And the problem is that if that's the case, what are you going to do with the welfare benefits? Do you keep it or do you get rid of it and just use it as a basic income?
I wouldn't say get rid of it. I would say get rid of it.
No, I mean, the other problem that comes with that is that the universal basic incomes only sort of works if people are working because they put a small amount in. It's like a savings account where the worker puts a small amount in and the employer contributes the same.
Like KiwiSaver.
Yeah,
but you get it in your.
Yeah, you get it. But everybody, there's no means test. Everybody, rich, poor, whatever, who's working, they will get that. The problem is that it's higher. It's higher than the actual benefit. That's the problem. So, and a lot of people on the benefit are not working. So they're looking at that, well, you're disadvantaging people that are on a benefit. Yeah, you're good. But that could also be an incentive for people that are on these benefits to get off their asses and actually go and find work. We're not sure.
Because they're going to get free money anyway.
Yeah, we're not short of work though, Cam. I mean, it's work. The biggest problem with I mean, you look at a lot of people that are in outside stores holding cardboards and intersections and stuff like that. I look at them and I see them, their enthusiasm, and running around cleaning windscreens and stuff. And I was thinking, well, if you're able to do that for, I don't know, 5, 6, 10, whatever hours you're out here, what the hell aren't you sort of, in a construction firm or whatever, supermarkets or whatever.
He just jobs out of Hastings.
But the problem is I see is that a lot of them will probably have addiction issues. And some of them possibly have, mental or criminal. And that's the stigma that unfortunately is stuck on a lot of these people. You may see them able-bodied, but you just don't know what's up here. Huh?
So when's the elections next year? What month?
Local?
Yeah, local.
8th October.
8th of October. Oh, this month. Oh, October, this year. That's coming up real quick.
It is. I mean, voting packs have been out since Friday. So people can pre-vote until, I think, the 4th of October.
That's another thing they have to figure out how to vote because it's hard for people to sign it and take it to a library or a supermarket.
No, you can. I mean, You can. I'm not sure how it works on a polling day on the 8th. I mean, a polling day stops at 12 o'clock. I mean, the whole voting pack thing was make it easier for people because some of them probably just lazy to go to these voting polls, you know. So these are things that are changing in terms of the electoral law that we have. I mean, in the future, there's a likelihood that we will be expected to vote online, you know. But again, there'll be a lot of people that don't know how to use online or access online, you know? So it's a problem that people are looking at in the future to try and get people to vote. But I'm a believer that, you know, if you don't vote for these things, then don't complain. Yeah, don't complain. You know, as I said, I know a lot of people whinge and moan, Cam, post remarks or comments on Facebook or whatever. Didn't stay.
So what's coming up till now until the elections on the 8th? You got any speaking arrangements happening, or so how are you gonna approach the next few weeks?
I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, in the next couple of weeks will be the cutthroat week for. Ultimately, this podcast that I'm doing with you is part of a part of my campaigning.
Absolutely.
And I'm also going to use that for next year. But ultimately, I'll look at seeing if there's any debates that are involved in the next week or so, and to see whether I can actually get involved. I don't know. Local body elections are a little bit different than general election. I feel that I'm more involved in local body elections because I've been given a chance to put out questionnaires in these public profile forums, you know, like Auckland, Vote for Auckland, Policy NZ, even News Hub, you know, sent me an email a few days ago. So I filled in a questionnaire of questions and stuff like that and sent it through. Whereas general election, no, you're basically on your own unless you have a hierarchy that can initiate things behind the scenes. You know, you're on your own. You know, crash any party that you can, any media outlet, anything. You know, but that's the sad part about politics. There'll be a lot of people who want to enter, but you're stymied. You're just stymied, Cam. You know, and until I get a chance to debate with a lot of these people or to be interviewed by papers, whatever. Then sadly I won't be able to express the views that I want to express. The only way that I can sort of campaign in a sense is by campaigning behind the scenes through work, through the travels that places that I go and stuff like that. That is the only work or only way that I can do that. So, and I've been doing that for the last 2 years. It's just putting my name out there, informing people of my intent and policies that they ask. You know, I asked them, ask me anything. You know, I'll give you a reply. You know, it may not be something that you agree on, but in the end, that's your answer. You know, rather than asking Phil Tyford or anybody that they'll give you an answer that Labour has asked them to put out. No, not an answer that Phil Tyford wants to put out. Yeah, and that's a sad thing also. A lot of these people probably have a lot of ideas that they want to put out, you know, but they can't because they are beholden to whatever scripted from people behind the scenes, you know. So any publicity.
Thanks, cousin, for coming on the podcast. Good luck for your campaign and hope you do well, man.
I can only try, Cam, and I hope in the future that the next time I get to speak with you, I'm in a different position, and I can actually give you realistic answers to solutions, you know, because I'm on the table. So,
you're more than welcome to come back.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it very much for your time, and thank you for inviting me. Now I'm just going home and just watch Netflix.
ABs in Australia.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I'm not I'm a retired sportsman, but I don't necessarily watch sports. And karaoke is my thing. That's my outlet.
Right.
But I also go and read and watch a lot of docos and stuff like that. That's my real. But having said that, I will only read the results of such a game tomorrow. Again, read from the paper, so that I have a thing of what if somebody can say such and such, even though I don't watch a game. Oh yeah, blah 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 blah. That's the way I can interact in any conversation. It's not if I don't watch something. If I read it the next day, I have an idea, and at least I read comments or certain things. So if somebody asks, yeah, that's the way to do it.
What's your go-to song in karaoke?
Disco Inferno by the Tramps. I'm into these sort of the 70s, 60s, 50s group, but also the likes of reggae. But rock.
Yeah.
Rock is, I'm into the Animals, So that's my buzz. So it's really good outlet to express stress and all that.
Yeah.
After a couple of drinks, you can sing whatever notes you can sing. So but yeah, so that's what I do outside of work. So I'm actually in between looking for jobs at the moment.
Are you? Oh, okay.
So I want to get into aged care. Hopefully, that's another. Environment that I actually have a passion for. It's aged care, So I'm going to see what they do. So in case I end up there one day in years to come, so preempt, So, but yeah, so that's where I want to look at. Maybe Vision West. Have a look. So, but yeah. So we'll see how what happens.
Right.
So
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cam.
Thanks.